Chapter 909. The second level of the Great Tao Disc is complete. This level doesn't have a significant effect on my cultivation. At most, it can push my combat strength from the level of a powerhouse to the level of a top-notch one. In terms of patterns, it should be 4 patterns and not more than 5. However, its main function is to lay a good foundation. Tsing Hui's gaze fell on the deep scarlet sword. Back then, Tsing Hui had transferred the cultivation systems of the Torch Dragon and the Golden Crow to the Deep Scarlet Sword. Although the Deep Scarlet Sword had long separated from these two cultivation systems, it had laid a solid foundation. He could cultivate these two laws without the need for great Tao nomological fragments and then integrate them into the heavenly Tao that he had created with the great Tao of unity as the foundation. Time is tight. I'll cultivate these two great Tao nomological laws to the sovereign level, then obtain the great Tao origin to cultivate to the origin sacred body level, and finally reach the level of transforming my body into Tao. Tsing Hui quickly arranged the following cultivation journey. However, he stopped after a while. Wait a minute. Many of the 12 disciples I've taught have completed their cultivation. In addition, I've cultivated the great Tao nomological laws represented by the Golden Crow and the Torch Dragon in order to integrate them into the heavenly Tao that I formed with the great Tao of unity. Why don't I use my great Tao nomological laws as the origin to cultivate now? When the time comes, I just need to complete the corresponding great Tao nomological laws. Tsing Hui immediately broke away from the conventional cultivation method and began to cultivate the great Tao nomological laws represented by the Golden Crow and the Torch Dragon. Due to his extremely high realm, it took him less than 30 years to cultivate these two great Tao nomological laws to the peak of the sovereign level. Then, with the infusion of the great Tao of unity's origin power, he easily broke through to the origin sacred body level. Then, he settled at this level for 300 years and completed the cultivation of transforming his body into Tao. Finally, he used another 600 years to integrate the two great Tao nomological laws into the great Tao of unity. All in all, this seclusion took him more than 2,800 years. Now, I can truly be said to be equivalent to the two-pattern realm. The power of the great Tao nomological laws flowed in Tsing Hui's hands. One of his hands represented the power of the Golden Crow, while the other represented the Torch Dragon. However, because he already possessed battle prowess at the 4-vein level with the second level of the Tao Disc, the newly added Golden Crow and Torch Dragon laws didn't have much of an obvious increase in his strength. At most, it only allowed him to reach the peak of 4-vein level. Among the peak almighties, he was just barely out of the bottom. Next, I can only rely on the great Tao nomological laws of unity. Qing Su sighed emotionally and stopped his seclusion that had lasted for 2,800 years. Grand Tao fragments are extremely precious. I wonder if they can be traded in the Great Development Gate. Tsing Hui's thought. However, after a moment, he drove this thought to the back of his mind. This is related to the supreme treasure that can be added to the great Tao nomological laws of the 12 divine beasts. Even if the great Tao nomological laws of the 12 divine beasts are circulated in the great Tao nomological laws of unity, I probably can't afford it with my current wealth. I can only ask Lord Qing Shui to see if I can obtain nomological laws of the great Tao and nomological laws from other sources. Thinking of this, Tsing Hui no longer continued the useless cultivation. His figure flashed, and he flew toward the divine wilderness great world. In the past 3,000 years, the divine wilderness great world had developed to an even more prosperous state. Not only had powerhouses at the world creation realm sprung up like bamboo shoots after a spring rain, there were now 23 of them. Even a second primal chaos sovereign had appeared after by Shuai. It was the former number 1 expert of the firmament realm, ranked 3rd on the list of the strongest in the divine wilderness great world, esteemed Zhu Zhao. With the originator, it was much easier for him to break through to the chaotic realm than ordinary people. In addition, with Tsing Hui's unstinting support and the careful guidance from Sword Master Qin Kong of the Void Sword Pavilion from time to time, he finally stepped into the first level of the chaotic realm 100 years ago and became the #1 expert in the Hunyuan sword sect. If the Divine Wilderness Great World production of Dao nomological items is similar to that of the true Central Great World, the Yujing Great World, and the Kunlong Great World, with the current power of the Hunyuan sword sect, even without me and by Shuang who joined the Void Sword Pavilion, it is still qualified to occupy this world. Tsing Hui looked at the sky above the Divine Wilderness Great World and withdrew his gaze. Instead of going down, he walked directly toward the transmission formation. The Hunyuan sword sect was now gradually growing and did not need him to look after it all the time. Whoosh! Tsing Hui's figure flashed and came to the Eternal Station. Through the transmission formation in the original Eternal Station, he appeared in the true Sun Great World. Lord of Dao Qin Shui was now in the true Sun Great World and was living a rather leisurely life. When Tsing Hui found him, he was guiding the cultivation of a few juniors. At the same time, there were 2 dominators who had cultivated the Hunyuan sacred body, serving him on both sides. Lord of Dao Qin Shui. Tsing Hui's voice came from the void. Hearing Tsing Hui's voice, Lord of Dao Qin Shui was slightly startled and then looked at him awkwardly. I have finished setting up the restriction you asked me to set up outside the true Sun Great World. Since I have nothing to do, I summoned the juniors of my family to guide their cultivation. After saying that, he waved his hand. Come and greet Sword God Tsing Hui. Sword God Tsing Hui is younger than me and a true genius who has joined the Great Development Gate. There were no weaklings in the Great Development Gate. Anyone who could be called a member of the Great Development Gate and was qualified to use the Great Development Gate's title was equivalent to a veteran great medium. In the face of such a great figure, the juniors who were being guided by Lord of Dao Qin Shui and the 2 dominators who had cultivated the Hunyuan sacred body did not dare to be negligent. They hurried forward and bowed respectfully. Greetings, Sword God Tsing Hui. Tsing Hui waved his hand and said, No need to be so polite. Then, he turned to Lord of Dao Qin Shui. I have something to ask you. Lord of Dao Qin Shui waved his hand, and the 2 dominators immediately took the juniors and left. Then, he said, Do you need a change of environment? It's not a secret. I just want to ask you where I can get the great Dao nomological fragments of the 12 divine beasts. The great Dao nomological fragments of the 12 divine beasts? Have you fused the 2 great Dao nomological fragments? Lord of Dao Qin Shui asked curiously. Tsing Hui shook his head. I just want to know in advance so that I can be prepared. Seeing how Qin Su was unwilling to talk about it, Waterlord Qin Shui felt that it was inappropriate to ask too much. She nodded and organized her thoughts slightly before saying, There are a total of 4 ways to obtain the laws of ways of the 12 divine beasts. There are 4 ways? Tsing Hui's eyes lit up. Lord of Dao Qin Shui smiled bitterly and said, Listen to me first. Of these 4 methods, the simplest one is naturally to search around. If you can find some scattered fragments of the 12 divine beasts' law by chance, you can naturally refine these dharmas and quickly obtain a kind of great way power. However, this method requires too much luck. Tsing Hui nodded. He knew this method long ago. For example, Lord of Dao Qin Shui and many people in the Great Development Gate, they had obtained the great Dao nomological fragments of the 12 divine beasts through this method. Thus, they possessed combat strength that surpassed ordinary great medium. The second way is to buy it. Buy it? Someone is willing to sell it. Of course, no one is willing. However, if the cultivator is facing a life and death crisis, or if his cultivation is at the critical point of a breakthrough, I think he won't mind using a great Dao nomological fragment to ask someone to help him. However, such a good thing is usually snatched away by the 5-vein level, 6-vein level, or even the most powerful divine powers. They have extremely rich resources in their hands, and the price they can offer is much higher than we can imagine. Unless we happen to have something that person urgently needs, It's almost impossible to compete with them. Seeing Huey's face darkened. With his current resources, how could he compete with a powerful person in terms of wealth? He did not even want to think about it. Then there's the third method. The great Tao law manifested by us human great divine masters isn't pure and can't be considered one of the 12 divine beasts' great Tao laws. However, divine beasts are different. If you can cultivate a divine beast to the level of a great divine master, then kill and refine it, you'll naturally be able to obtain its corresponding great Tao law fragment. Cultivate a divine beast to the level of a great medium, then kill and refine it. Sing Hui shook his head. This method was also not advisable. The combat power of a divine beast was 10 times that of a human. In other words, a divine beast, even the weakest one, was equivalent to a top great medium. Not to mention that Sing Hui did not have enough resources to cultivate a divine beast. Even if he did, it was still unknown whether he would kill the divine beast or be swallowed by the divine beast in the end. It was useless even if he had signed a contract early. This was because when a divine beast cultivated to the level of great Tao, it was equivalent to a kind of law and would not be bound by a contract at all. Then there's the fourth way. It's the most dangerous, but also the one with the most benefits. Speaking of this, Tao Lord Qing Shui paused slightly and said with a solemn face, that is to kill the ancestors of the 12 divine beasts. Kill the ancestors of the 12 divine beasts. Sing Hui was stunned. The ancestors of the 12 divine beasts were terrifying creatures between great medium and evil gods. Even the most powerful people could barely survive in front of any of the ancestors of the divine beasts, let alone them. In terms of combat power, one ancestor of the divine beasts was probably equivalent to hundreds or thousands of ordinary great medium. Tao Lord Qing Shui seemed to understand Sing Hui's idea and said with a smile, "Of course, it's impossible to kill the ancestors of the 12 divine beasts. However, what about injuring the ancestors of the divine beasts and snatching a part of the law fragments from them? Since the establishment of the Great Development Sect, we've organized 4 campaigns to kill the ancestors of the divine beasts. We've succeeded 3 times and obtained more than 100 great Tao law fragments in all 3 campaigns." Sing Hui could not help but shake his head. "I'm afraid the number of fallen great medium is not small." Yes, in the 4 campaigns, the number of fallen great medium is 92. In the one that failed, 2 of the most powerful people died. Tao Lord Qing Shui paused slightly. This is the most dangerous but also the most beneficial method. Moreover, according to the information I've received, about 1,300 years later, the Great Development Sect will organize the 5th campaign to kill the ancestors of the divine beasts. The target is the Qilin, the ancestor of the divine beasts with a lower combat power. Chapter 9-10. Qilin, an auspicious beast. Compared to the divine beasts such as the golden crow, the kunpeng, and the tong tian, it was indeed inferior, but as the ancestor of the 12 divine beasts, even if the ancestor Qilin was not good at fighting, its combat strength was not something that ordinary great divines could fight against. In such a large-scale encirclement battle, perhaps even the supreme experts could barely keep their lives. Whether they could tear a great Tao law from the ancestor Qilin would be a problem. As for the great divines below the supreme experts, that was the real fate of life and death. Because this time we are dealing with the divine beast ancestor Qilin. Everyone knows that its combat strength is not strong. There are many participants, not only the sect master and the 5 elders, but also more than half of the deacons and disciples. The success rate of encirclement is very high. Speaking of this, Lord of Tao Qing Shui paused for a moment. In fact, if there was no agreement with sword god Sing Hui, I would also want to try my luck. You're going to? Sing Hui's gaze fell on Lord of Tao Qing Shui, looking a little surprised. That is the ancestor Qilin. Not to mention us great divines below the 3-striped level. Even great divines from the 4-striped to 6-striped level would not be able to withstand a few blows in front of such a terrifying existence, right? The Ancestor Cheelan's real target is most likely the Sect Master and the Elders. As long as we are careful, we may not be in danger. Besides, I will not rush to the front line directly. The main purpose of going is to try my luck. If I am lucky, I hope to get a great Dao Law fragment. If I am unlucky, I will not force it and will just take it as some experience to kill the ancestor of the divine beasts. Lord of Dao Qing Shui looked very calm. Sing Hui shook his head. Although he now had the combat strength not inferior to the 4-stripe level, and even close to the 5-stripe level, he still did not want to take the risk before he had enough confidence to save his life. It's too dangerous for a 1-vein to 3-vein level cultivator to get involved in such an important matter. It's the exact opposite. The ones who suffer the heaviest losses are the 4 to 6-vein cultivators. This is because 1-vein and 3-vein cultivators are extremely clear about their position. They definitely won't act rashly before they have enough confidence. As a result, the number of experts who die is lower. Just like last time, only 7 of the 18 people who died were 1-vein to 3-vein, while 11 were 4-vein to 6-vein. I don't intend to get involved in this encirclement operation. Sing Hui shook his head. Then if we want to obtain Grand Dao Law's fragments, we can only rely on our own fortune, nurture divine beasts, and trade with others. Moreover, trading with others usually requires bartering, and in terms of the abundance of resources, we're far from being able to compare with those deacons and elders. Sing Hui did not say anything else. He needed to think about it carefully and understand it. I'm going to the Grand Development Gate, Sing Hui said, and returned to the True Sun Great World. He then went through the True Sun Great World to the Vast Great World, and then entered the Grand Development Gate from the Vast Great World. When he arrived at the Grand Development Gate, Sing Hui did not waste any time and went straight to the library of the Grand Development Gate. In fact, the Grand Development Gate was an extremely loose organization. Although there were many missions in the gate, none of these missions were compulsory. It was fine to ignore these missions, and cultivators who completed these missions could also obtain a considerable amount of contribution points. On one hand, contribution points could be used to look up precious information. On the other hand, if one encountered any danger, one could also issue a reward to ask others for help. For example, when Sing Hui was flipping through the books in the library, because he did not have contribution points, he could only look up some basic information. The 4 operations were respectively 44,000 years ago, 28,000 years ago, 16,000 years ago, and 6,000 years ago. In the operation 28,000 years ago, because the target was the Torch Dragon, the Great Development Gate dispatched 63 people. In the end, a total of 46 people were killed by the Torch Dragon, including 2 of their strongest experts. The remaining people, without exception, were all heavily injured. Even the Great Development Gate's Gate Master and several elders who led the team were no exception. It could be said to be an unprecedentedly tragic loss. Sing Hui's gaze swept through the information one by one. In the 4 operations, there were an average of 15 to 16 people who died. Among them, 40% were from 1-vein to 3-vein, and 60% were from 4-vein to 6-vein. Every time they succeeded, they would often obtain 30 to 40 fragments of the Grand Dao Laws. Compared to the previous operations, there were still 1,300 years before the operation began, but the number of people who had decided to participate had already reached 69. When the time was up, the number of people who had signed up was estimated to reach more than 80. Compared to the previous operations, the scale was much larger. In addition, the threat of the Divine Beast Cheelan was far from being comparable to the Divine Beast Torch Dragon. Whether it was the success rate or the safety of this operation, it was all higher than the previous operations. Perhaps I should think of other ways. It's difficult for my cultivation to increase in a short period of time, but if I can obtain a divine weapon of creation and let the Scarlet Abyss Sword Spirit devour and refine it, it can immediately grow to the level of a divine weapon of creation. In addition, the Scarlet Abyss Sword itself is derived from my Grand Dao, almost equivalent to my personal divine weapon. The strength of a 4-vein or close to 5-vein coupled with an exclusive divine weapon of creation. This is equivalent to the model of a supreme expert. In this way, in the battle to encircle and annihilate the ancestral Qilin, whether it is the harvest or the protection of my own safety, it will all be greatly increased. Tsing Hui's eyes flashed. If this operation was successful, not only would he be able to advance to the 3-vein level, if he had enough fragments of the Grand Outlaws, he could use them to exchange with others for other fragments of the Grand Outlaws. At that time, it would not be difficult for him to advance to 5-vein, 6-vein, or even 7-vein, which was equivalent to a true supreme expert. A divine weapon of creation. Tsing Hui pondered. The best way to obtain a divine weapon of creation was to kill a godly venerable god or 10 superior gods. With his current level of cultivation, he might be able to fight evenly with an expert like God Brilliant, but if he were to say that he could kill him, it was beyond his power. As for higher gods usually had their own divine system or were in a divine system, and a divine system with a higher god had at least a supreme god behind it. Killing any one of them would bring a lot of trouble, let alone killing 10 of them in a row. If Qing Su really managed to kill the 10 higher gods within 1,000 years or so, he could guarantee that even the supreme deities under the Master of God's lineage would be alarmed. By then, they would definitely lead the entire god pantheon to hunt him down personally. Let's see if there are any suitable missions. After a moment of headache, Tsing Hui's gaze could not help but fall on the mission help column of the Great Development Gate. Even though there were not many official members of the Great Development Hall, there were still around 500 or 600 requests for help in the request column. Qing Su glanced through them one by one, and very soon, his gaze landed on the missions with the highest rewards. One of the missions even offered a fragment of the Grand Tao, laws torn from the divine, Beast Yujia. The mission was issued by a 5-mark deacon with a shocking request. The mission was to help him kill the Dark Knight deity of the Master of Gods. The Dark Knight deity was a supreme ultimate god on the same level as the glorious sun deity. Not to mention how much power was needed to kill a supreme ultimate god. Just the fact that the death of a supreme ultimate god would attract the attention of the Master of Gods was enough to make even the sect master and elder-level existences in the Great Development Gate stop in their tracks. Tsing Hui's gaze continued to look down, and soon, a message caught his attention. Help him kill the supreme god of the giant beast, and all the rewards will go to the helper, and an extra 30,000 contribution points. Tsing Hui's gaze fell on the mission issuer. Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword, a 4-mark deacon. 4-vein cultivation level was already equivalent to a relatively weak ultimate god. However, it was completely wishful thinking to kill an ultimate god with such strength. It was no wonder that he had spread the news and sought the help of other great divines. The astral beast sovereign seems to be even more powerful than the glorious divinity. He has 3 high gods under him. I'll go take a look first. Regardless of whether or not I'm able to kill the astral beast sovereign, just being able to kill 1 or 2 of those 3 high gods is enough to bring me 1 step closer to the 10 high gods. As he thought, Tsing Hui had already contacted the Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord through the message left behind by him. Not long after, an incarnation was projected and arrived at Tsing Hui's appointed location. It was the Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord. The Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord was rather happy when he arrived. However, when he saw that Tsing Hui's clothes were only a 1-mark deacon, he could not help but reveal a hint of disappointment. Fellow Taoist, have you seen clearly the requirements of my mission? I want to kill a supreme god, and a supreme god has the ability to kill a 1-mark, 2-mark, or even 3-mark cultivator. You, Tsing Hui smiled. Although I'm only a 1-mark deacon and have only mastered 2 Great Tao laws, my understanding of the Great Tao laws is extremely profound. Any Great Tao law is probably not inferior to a 2-mark or 3-mark deacon. Therefore, even if my combat strength is not as good as a 5-mark deacon, it won't be much weaker than a 5-mark deacon. When Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword heard this, a smile appeared on his face. I was too rash. The number of great Daos does not represent everything. There are still Dao protectors among the great divinities. However, it is too dangerous to surround and kill a supreme god. For safety's sake, I still want to see your strength with my own eyes. Please forgive me. I can understand. Does the dragon, sword, heavenly lord have any good venues? I can accept the verification of the dragon, sword, heavenly lord at any time. There's a place that is convenient for you to use your full strength. Sorry for the intrusion. As the dragon, sword, heavenly lord spoke, he brought Tsing Hui out of the great yin sky and arrived at the chaotic void. When they arrived at the chaotic void, Tsing Hui did not restrain his aura. He directly used the two great Dao laws of the Golden Crow and the Torch Dragon that had fused with the Unification Great Dao. For a moment, raging flames burned the sky, and a blazing torrent swept in all directions. The dragon, sword, heavenly lord's eyes were filled with surprise. Good. Fellow Taoists' understanding of the great Dao laws is indeed extraordinary. I'll rely on you for this operation. The eruption continues. Chapter 9:11. After personally verifying Tsing Hui's cultivation base, Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword's attitude towards Tsing Hui had undergone a huge change. It could be said that he was incomparably enthusiastic. With fellow Tsing Hui's help, my chances of success this time have increased to 80%. As Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword spoke, he had already passed all the relevant information about the Divine Bee Sovereign to Tsing Hui. Tsing Hui listened to Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword's flattery while flipping through the information about the Divine Bee Sovereign. He did not dare to relax in the slightest when facing a Divine Venerable whose combat strength might be slightly higher than his. After a long while, Tsing Hui finished reading all the information. For a moment, his gaze fell on Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword. Heavenly Venerable, I've read the information. It says that you've placed a chess piece beside the Divine Bee Sovereign, and it's a medium, god-level chess piece. It has quite a bit of influence on the Divine Bee Sovereign. That's right. Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword nodded with a hateful expression. The Divine Beast Sovereign destroyed my inheritance, and the hatred between us is irreconcilable. As early as 60,000 years ago, I've been plotting to deal with him, but because my cultivation base is limited and I haven't been able to take out enough contribution points to invite top experts to help, I've been unable to do anything to him. That's why he's been free and unfettered to this day. Then, Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword, can we set the battlefield in the chaotic void? Tsing Hui had a vague plan in his heart. Set the battlefield in the chaotic void? Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword was slightly stunned. The chaotic void is not a good place. Once we exhaust too much of our power of laws there, I'm afraid we'll be eroded by the chaotic aura. If the Divine Beast Sovereign chooses to continuously exhaust our power when he realizes that he's in danger, even if we can kill him in the end, we'll have to give up there. I'm afraid that the gains won't make up for the losses. Don't worry, I have a fortune artifact. This fortune artifact has no other use, but it can allow me to safely survive in the primal chaos void. If we set up the battlefield in the primal chaos void, the advantage of my fortune artifact will be maximized. At that time, the success rate of killing Supreme God Astral Beast will be greatly increased. There's actually such a creation artifact. Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword was overjoyed. That's right. The key now is whether you can find a way to lure him into the primal chaos void. Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword gritted his teeth and agreed. I'll think of a way. Then I'll wait for your good news. Tsing Hui said. If Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword could really lure the Supreme God Astral Beast into the primal chaos void, the original 80% chance of winning this battle would directly rise to 100%. The probability of smoothly killing the Supreme God Astral Beast would also increase to more than 60%. After all, the Divine Beast God is the master of a god system. He's one of the top existences among the great masters. For safety's sake, let's summon Lord of Water, Dao Qing, as well. Even if she can't defeat the Divine Beast God, As long as she can slightly cut off the divine beast god system and share the pressure of a superior god, it'll still be a lot easier for us. Xing Hui thought and sent a message to Water Lord Qing Shui. In order to kill the almighty beast divinity, he had spared no effort this time. An ultimate god, that was a fortune divine artifact. Time passed, and soon 30 years had passed. During these 30 years, Xing Hui constantly studied the four supreme swordsmanship obtained from the Void Sword Pavilion. At the same time, he fused the power of laws of the two divine beasts, the Torch Dragon and the Golden Crow, into the swordsmanship. The two divine beast laws were respectively fused into the two great swordsmanships, the Immortal Slaying Sword and the Immortal Slaying Sword, which greatly increased the power of the Great Path Principle. However, it destroyed the balance of the sword formation formed by the four swords. Considering that Xing Hui could only use the power of the Great Path of the Divine Beast when he acted with Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword and the others, he finally chose to give up the sword formation formed by the four great swordsmanships. Just as Xing Hui was about to devote his mind to the study of other Great Path principles, Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword, who had been away for 30 years, found Xing Hui and said excitedly, "Sword God Xing Hui has taken the bait. The Divine Beast God has taken the bait. I paid a huge price to give that pawn a great opportunity and gave him an opportunity to become a superior god. He lived up to my expectations and successfully advanced. Then he stole a treasure of the Divine Beast God and lured him out. Now, the Divine Beast God is chasing that pawn into the chaotic void." "Okay, let's go," Xing Hui said without hesitation. At that moment, Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword, Xing Hui, Tao Lord Clear Water, and another great medium, Realm Lord Black Mirror, set out at the same time and headed straight for the chaotic void. The Black Mirror Realm Lord owed the Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord a huge favor back then. Now, he was willing to lend the Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord a helping hand. However, like the Clear Water Tao Lord, he was the kind of assistant who would take advantage of the situation. When it came to a life and death battle, the Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord would have to rely on himself. The four of them were extremely fast. In less than 20 years, they had already caught up to the chaotic void. My chess piece has already been killed by the Divine Beast Sovereign. However, the Divine Beast Sovereign is now a long distance away from the primal chaos void. As long as we can tie him down and exhaust his strength, we will definitely be able to trap him in the primal chaos void. After chasing for a period of time in the chaotic void, Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword also received new news. Even for the Dragon Sword Celestial Sovereign, allowing a mid-level god to break through to the high-level god level was a combination of resources, opportunities, and luck. However, such a reliable subordinate had fallen in the hands of the giant beast Divine Sovereign. Just thinking about it made the Dragon Sword Celestial Sovereign's heart ache. However, it was obviously not the time to feel sorry for the loss. The four of them continued their pursuit. Finally, 3 years later, a huge god system that was returning at full speed suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Divine Beast God, Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword sensed the aura emanating from the huge god system, and a piercing cold light shot out from his eyes. It's not easy to hide in the chaotic void. We can only attack head-on. Moreover, the Divine Beast God is very careful when he moves forward. The power of the gods in his god kingdom and god system has never been separated. I'm afraid it's impossible to use sneak attacks to tear apart his god system. Tao Lord Clear Water, Realm Lord Black Mirror, the two of you just do your best to entangle the two higher gods. I'll go and exhaust the Divine Beast God's power head-on. As for the other higher god and the Divine Beast God system, it's all up to you, Sword God Xing Hui. Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword said fiercely. "Leave it to me." Xing Hui nodded. The Divine Beast God in front of them was different from the Divine Beast God. The Divine Beast God's power was connected to his god system, and he had an endless supply of god system's power. As long as they did not destroy the Divine Beast God system, even if the Divine Beast God kingdom was destroyed, he would be able to condense it again. In other words, As long as the divine beast god system was not destroyed, his god kingdom would never fall. Kill! With a roar, the four higher gods burst forth with their fastest speed and charged at the divine beast god. Sensing the enemy from afar, the divine beast god manifested a powerful god spirit body. Dragon's word, it's actually you. It seems that the traitor is also one of your people. You're really willing to give up on a higher god so easily, just to lure me into this chaotic void? You want to use the chaotic void's environment to kill me? Dream on. For great divine masters, I'll kill one of them first. The almighty beast god, who had manifested his godly spirit body, let out a roar and immediately locked his gaze on the weakest realm Lord Black Mirror. He threw out a punch, and there seemed to be tens of thousands of prehistoric beasts with a diameter of hundreds of millions of kilometers roaring in the void, forming a torrent that charged forward. This caused the realm Lord Black Mirror's expression to change slightly, and his charging figure also faintly hesitated. I'll block his attack. At the sight of this, Ching Su said and directly went up to him. Heavenly Lord Dragon's word saw this, and a trace of gratitude flashed in his eyes. Thank you, Sword God Tsing Hui. As he spoke, Tsing Hui had already met the divine beast god's 10,000 beast charge. As he pinched his fingers into a sword and slashed out with all his strength, streaks of blazing sword chi mixed with the flames of the golden crow, and the torch dragon crisscrossed the chaos and met the group of charging prehistoric beasts. This special performance stunned Dao, Lord Qing Shui, who knew that Tsing Hui was a Kuan Peng and a chaos divine beast great Dao. However, he was still wise enough not to speak carelessly. The beasts and the sword chi rapidly fought and collided in the chaotic void, forming a vast chaotic storm, causing the surrounding vitality to be in chaos. Again, after slashing out thousands of sword chi to block the charging beasts, Tsing Hui did not stop at all. He attacked again. More sword lights mixed with the blazing true flames of the golden crow, and the torch dragon swept out in a majestic manner, sweeping toward the divine beast god's huge god system. At this moment, Heavenly Lord Dragon's word also arrived in front of the divine beast god's huge god system. There seemed to be a huge sword with a diameter of 10 billion kilometers in the void. There were countless true dragons circling and roaring on the huge sword. It swept out with supreme pressure and slashed toward the divine beast god system. The attacks from both directions could be said to be without holding back. Even the divine beast god's expression changed drastically when he saw this. He had no choice but to block with all his strength. For a time, violent explosions and a vast and majestic torrent of destruction spread continuously in the chaotic void. It impacted the surrounding chaotic vitality, causing the chaotic vitality to form circles of ripples that were less than a few 100 million kilometers in length. In the fierce battle, Black Mirror Realm Lord and Dao Lord Qing Shui also joined the battle circle. They constantly attacked the divine beast god system, setting off a new wave of destructive storms. This is the divine beast god glanced at Dao Lord Qing Shui and Black Mirror Realm Lord. These two great magics were better. Although they were constantly attacking the divine beast god system, they did not go all out. At least, they still had enough energy to retreat. However, Tsing Hui in front of him, he was completely ignorant of the concept of consumption. In the chaotic void where the environment was extremely harsh and there was no way to replenish his power, he still attacked without restraint. He even fought with the divine beast god as if he was risking his life. If it were not for the fact that the divine beast god was very sure that he had not offended Tsing Hui, he would have suspected that there was some irreconcilable enmity between him and Tsing Hui. Damn it, I like to see how much power of laws you have. If you want to kill me, then be prepared to leave your lives behind. The divine beast god roared. With a ferocious look, he pounced toward Tsing Hui crazily. He actually looked like he wanted to perish together with Tsing Hui. Unfortunately, the divine beast god's bravado of perishing together with Tsing Hui did not seem to scare Tsing Hui at all. He appeared to be crazy and ruthless, but Tsing Hui did not back down. In the fierce battle, The Great Path nomological laws in their bodies were being consumed crazily. This made Heavenly Master Dragon sort of little dumbfounded. He could not tell whether the divine beast god had a great enmity with Xing Hui or himself. Chapter 9:12. While Xing Hui and Hierarch Astral Beast were fighting, Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword took the opportunity to destroy Hierarch Astral Beast's divine system. He did not need to deliberately destroy the divine kingdoms in Hierarch Astral Beast's divine system. He only needed to use all his strength to separate the divine kingdoms of the intermediate and lower gods from Hierarch Astral Beast's divine system. Without the protection of Hierarch Astral Beast's divine system, the divine kingdoms of the intermediate and lower gods melted rapidly like snow thrown into magma. With the help of Taoist Lord Clearwater and Realm Lord Black Mirror, the divine kingdoms belonging to Hierarch Astral Beast's divine system continued to be destroyed. The scales of the war gradually tilted towards Xing Hui, Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword, and the others. Madman, you're really a madman. I have a divine kingdom, and my energy replenishment is far above yours. You definitely don't have much energy left after fighting me head-on. When the time comes, whether you can leave the chaotic void alive will be a problem. I'd like to see how long you can last. All divine kingdoms, come closer to me. Hierarch Astral Beast saw that his suicidal attitude did not scare Xing Hui at all. He immediately let out a long roar and withdrew the power of the divine kingdoms of many gods. Then, he began to retreat into the depths of the void. Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword, Realm Lord Black Mirror, Taoist Lord Clearwater, and the others expressed their understanding. But Xing Hui, they could not help but laugh. Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword, Realm Lord Black Mirror, Taoist Lord Clearwater, and Xing Hui had the advantage in numbers. They were obviously at a disadvantage in head-on battle. Hierarch Astral Beast planned to sacrifice the intermediate, lower, and true gods and use them as nourishment. He would use the special environment of the chaotic void to buy time for Xing Hui and the others. The harsh environment of the chaotic void pressured Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword and the others. Hierarch Astral Beast only needed to protect himself. Under such circumstances, as long as he could hold on, he would naturally be able to wear down Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword and the others. This was Hierarch Astral Beast's intention. His plan was perfect. 20 years after Hierarch Astral Beast entered the chaotic void, Realm Lord Black Mirror was the first to stop. If he continued the chase, the remaining energy in his body would not be enough for him to resist the corrosion of the chaotic void and return to the domain of the Master of Gods or the Master of Chaos. He left first. At this time, the Divinity Astral Beast, which had lost 30% of its divine system power, lost another 10% of its divine system power. Time passed, and after another 3 years, Lord of Dao Qingshui could not take it anymore and had to turn back. After dragging Lord of Dao Qingshui away, the divine colossal beast lost another 10% of its power. And then another 5 years passed, when Divinity Colossal Beast's divine system's power was reduced to less than 40%. Even Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword couldn't hold on any longer. The Dragon Sword Heavenly Exalt was rather reluctant to give up when he saw the dim divine pantheon that had shrunk to 90% of its size, but he could only place all his hopes on Qing Su. Qing Su Sword God, I'll leave everything to you. This is my only hope of killing the divine beast. Don't worry, you have to expend a lot of energy to survive flying in the chaotic void, to resist the corrosion of the chaotic void. But I don't have to worry at all. You can leave without worry. Xing Hui smiled and nodded at Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword. He did not expect that Divinity Colossal Beast would choose to use the chaotic void to exhaust each other to determine the winner. It was simply too much to his liking. Xing Hui continued to chase after Divinity Colossal Beast. After another 3 years, another 10% of Divinity Colossal Beast's divine system power was wiped out. After another 3 years, Divinity Colossal Beast's divine system power was weakened again. It was definitely less than 1/5 of its peak. In the blink of an eye, another 3 years had passed. Divinity Colossal Beast, with only 1/10 of its peak power, had obviously reached its limit. At this point, even Divinity Colossal Beast himself might not be able to return to the territory of the Master of Gods alive, let alone his pursuers. At this moment, Divinity Colossal Beast, whose divine country power was almost completely exhausted, finally stopped. He turned to Tsing Hui with a look of despair and gnashed his teeth. "What kind of deep hatred do you have with me? Why are you still unwilling to let me go after chasing me to such a deep place in the chaotic void? Now that we are deep in the chaotic void, it will take at least 40 years to travel at full speed. Even if you are an ultimate expert, the remaining power in your body is not enough for you to return to the territory of the great Master of Gods or the Master of Chaos. Are you really willing to risk your own life to take me down with you? Die?" Tsing Hui looked at Divinity Colossal Beast, who was less than 1/10 of its peak power, with a faint smile on his face. At the same time, the energy fluctuations on his body, which had been reduced to the extreme, gradually began to rise as he recovered towards his peak state. "I think that you are thinking too much. If you continue to hold on, you won't be able to hold on, but I may not." Divinity Colossal Beast could not help but widen his eyes as he looked at Tsing Hui, who seemed to be at the end of his rope just a second ago. This is impossible. Even the most powerful among the descendants of the Master of Chaos can't exhaust the Divinity Colossal Beast with divine system power to death in the chaotic void. How can you? Even the most powerful Divinity Colossal Beast can't exhaust a Divinity Colossal Beast with divine system power to death in the chaotic void, but I can. After Tsing Hui finished speaking, the aura on his body gradually changed. A trace of essence that belonged to a chaotic life form dissipated, reflecting the surrounding chaotic vital energy. For a moment, the chaotic vital energy, which was like a corrosive poison to ordinary cultivators, was absorbed by Tsing Hui and turned into energy to replenish the energy he consumed when flying at full speed. In just a moment, his aura had completely recovered to its peak state. This chaotic life form, or a chaotic life form? A chaotic life form in the growth stage. Feeling the change in Tsing Hui's aura, the Divinity Colossal Beast was in complete despair. He, an ordinary life form, was actually competing with a chaotic life form in the chaotic void. This was equivalent to a human competing with a fish in diving time. There was no other way to describe it other than seeking death. Divinity Colossal Beast, who realized this, could not help but laugh hysterically. "Ha ha ha, chaotic life form, chaotic life form. I'm actually competing with a chaotic life form in the chaotic void." Upon seeing this, Tsing Hui silently retreated a distance away. Divinity Colossal Beast would undoubtedly be dragged to death by him using the chaotic void's special environment. He did not want to suffer a desperate counterattack before he died. "I'm finished, but I won't leave anything for you. You can forget about getting any resources from me. Sinister and despicable chaotic life form. One day, the great Master of Gods will find you and tear your body apart, skin you alive, and pull out your tendons to avenge me. I believe that day won't be too far away." Ha ha ha! Divinity Colossal Beast laughed hysterically. Then, the divine kingdom began to collapse under his control and eventually evolved into a special existence similar to a black hole. However, the primal chaos void was different from the endless void. It was filled with a large amount of primal chaos energy. The hole created by the Divinity Astral Beast's self-destruction only created a sizable whirlpool, which was quickly filled by the endless stream of primal chaos energy. It was like a ship sinking in the middle of the sea. Aside from leaving a trace, it would not cause any ripples in the sea. A divine creation artifact is in my hands. Tsing Hui recorded the scene of Divinity Colossal Beast's death and deleted the scenes related to the chaotic life form. Then, he put it away with satisfaction. This was related to whether he could successfully exchange for a divine creation artifact. Moreover, a good fortune divine artifact was related to the evolution of the Scarlet Abyss Sword Spirit, as well as whether or not he could rely on the Scarlet Abyss Sword to become an existence on par with the Grand Development Gate's master and several elders. It's time to return, Sing Hui said with satisfaction. Then, he turned around and began to return the way he came. This kind of tactic of using the chaotic void's unique environment to exhaust a powerful opponent to death could be considered a routine. When the time came, it would definitely become his most powerful killing move. Since he did not need to use all his strength to return, Sing Hui doubled the original 40-year journey. When he met up with Dragon, Sword Heavenly Lord, Black Mirror Realm Lord, and Water Lord Clearwater in the territory of the Master of Gods, it was already 80 years later. From a departure from the territory of the Master of Chaos to completely killing Divinity Colossal Beast and returning to the territory of the Master of Gods, the four of them spent a total of nearly 200 years. From this, it could be seen how difficult it was to kill a divine creation artifact. At the same time, Sing Hui also had a deep understanding. As his cultivation continued to rise, the so-called concept of time by mortals had become more and more insignificant in his mind. Just like this battle to kill Divinity Colossal Beast, the total time spent was equivalent to 2 lifetimes of mortals. Sword God Sing Hui, how is it? As soon as Sing Hui returned, Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord could not wait to step forward and look at him expectantly. Sing Hui directly played the video he recorded and said with a smile, "Please take a look, Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord." Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord looked at the information recorded in the video and could not help but laugh out loud. Huh? Dead, finally dead. Divinity Colossal Beast, you also have a day like this. Ha! Black Mirror Realm Lord saw Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord's loss of composure and hurriedly explained for him. Sword God Sing Hui, please forgive him. Dragon's sword has been suppressed in his heart for too long. When he suddenly received this good news, he lost his composure. I understand. Sing Hui nodded understandingly and did not say anything more. Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord was, after all, an existence who had cultivated to the great mystic realm. In the Great Development Sect, he was equivalent to a 4-mark deacon. After indulging for a moment, he quickly controlled his emotions and said gratefully, Sword God Sing Hui, it's all thanks to you. If you did not have that treasure, the few of us would not have been able to successfully kill Divinity Colossal Beast. Since I chose the chaotic void as the battlefield, and Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord really lured Divinity Colossal Beast to the chaotic void, I naturally have to give you a satisfactory answer. Sing Hui said with a smile. Sword God Sing Hui, please take out your Identity Jade card. Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord said. Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord said. Sing Hui nodded and took out his Identity Jade card. As his Identity Jade card clashed with Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord's Identity Jade card, a message was transmitted from the Jade card that was connected to Sing Hui's mind. His Identity Jade card had an additional 43,000 contribution points. Sing Hui was slightly taken aback by this number. Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord, is there a mistake with the contribution points you gave me? The mission said that it was 30,000. I know it's 30,000. The extra is actually because I want to express my gratitude. If it weren't for the fact that I've only accumulated 43,000 contribution points over the years, I would be willing to give it to you even if it were 50,000 or 60,000. Killing the colossal beast divinity has always been my inner demon. It's just too important to me. Now that you've done this for me, Green Ruin Sword God, you've avenged me. I can't thank you enough. Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord spoke seriously, his face full of sincerity. Qingsu did not turn him down when he saw that. Otherwise, he would just be acting pretentious. In that case, I thank Dragon Sword Heavenly Lord. Chapter 4. Please log into your account on Qidian Chinese Network and cast your precious vote for Qingfen. Chapter 9, 13. Buzz. Streams of light overflowed. Xing Hui and Water Lord Qing Shui immediately appeared in the void battlefield of the 301 district, which was the largest in scale. When they arrived at the void battlefield, they did not stop at all and went straight to the merit audit office. As Water Lord Qing Shui did not deliberately hide his aura, the mysterious power of transforming his body into Tao immediately attracted the attention of countless cultivators who were exchanging various merit treasures in the merit audit office. Most of them avoided and bowed their heads respectfully to show their respect when they saw Water Lord Qing Shui. It should be known that even in the 301 district, which was the largest in scale, a great medium who could transform his body into Tao was still extremely rare. Now that a great medium had come out in person, the effect brought about by it naturally attracted the attention of countless people. Okay, I'll leave it to you. Xing Hui followed behind Water Lord Qing Shui and directly handed the crystal that recorded the fall of the divine beast god to him. In fact, Xing Hui is not the only one who doesn't want to expose yourself in front of the Master of Chaos. Am I not the same? In the end, our Grand Development Gate is not some honorable organization. Even if His Majesty the Master of Primal Chaos has tacitly approved of the competition between our Grand Development Gate's cultivators and the 12 divine beasts, if we are too arrogant, it will still cause His Majesty the Master of Primal Chaos to be dissatisfied. Water Lord Qing Shui was somewhat helpless. After this, our 10,000-year agreement will end here, Xing Hui said. Although there were only 6,000 to 7,000 years left before the 10,000-year agreement, Water Lord Qing Shui was naturally more than happy to regain his freedom earlier. In addition to the strength and potential that Xing Hui had shown in the battle with the divine beast god, clenching his teeth, Water Lord Qing Shui finally agreed. Okay, I'll face the Master of Chaos for you and apply for a Creation Divine weapon. However, I can't guarantee that the Creation Divine weapon will meet your requirements. I understand. This kind of Creation Divine weapon often depends on luck. At worst, I'll exchange it with other experts who have Creation Divine weapons. Tao Lord Clearwater nodded. It was good that Xing Hui understood this. At this moment, a dominator who had cultivated the Hunyuan sacred body came to the audit office after hearing about the arrival of Lady Qing Shui and Xing Hui. He was slightly startled when he saw Lady Qing Shui and Xing Hui. He hurriedly bowed to them and said, "Greetings, Your Excellencies. I'm Gulang from the audit office. How may I be of service to you? I need to apply for a Fortune Divine artifact," Lord of Dao Qing Shui said to the head of the Merit Audit Office. Creation Divine artifact. Gulang's breathing stagnated slightly. Applying for a divine weapon of creation. How shocking was this? However, considering the other party's identity as an almighty, he suppressed the shock in his heart, and his expression became even more respectful. "Sir, may I know if you intend to apply for an exclusive Creation Divine artifact or exclusive Destinable Divine artifact?" "I don't have that ability." Lord of Tao Lord Clearwater shook her head and handed the crystal that recorded the death of the divine beast god to Gulang. "I killed a divine master by chance. This is the proof." Gulang immediately took the crystal and said with his head lowered, "Sir, please rest inside. We'll go and verify it now." "Hurry up." Yes. Gulang agreed and asked someone to bring Xing Hui and Lord of Tao Lord Clearwater to another courtyard while he made arrangements as fast as he could. The Lord of Chaos was different from other evil gods and creation beings. For other wretched gods and fortune life forms, creating a Fortune Divine artifact wouldn't take much effort, but it would still take a toll on them. However, as the Lord of Primal Chaos, who stood at the pinnacle of all life forms in the Chaos-verse, he had destroyed hundreds of thousands of fortuned life forms and wretched gods. Over hundreds of millions of years, he had accumulated quite a few Fortune Divine artifacts. That was why he was able to use them to motivate his subordinates in times of war and motivate them to do their best. Over the years, although there were not many almighties who had killed divine masters or 10 upper deities, A conservative estimate could barely reach 3 digits. Therefore, there was naturally a special process to apply for a creation divine artifact. In less than 3 days, Gulang had found Lord of Dao Qingshui again and said with joy, "Congratulations, Lord of Dao Qingshui. Your application for a creation divine artifact has been approved. Our temple master has learned about this and is rushing over at full speed. He'll be here in less than a year. By then, our temple master will personally plead with His Majesty, the Lord of Chaos, to bear witness and then bestow upon you the creation divine artifact." Is the Realm Guardian Temple Master coming in person? Lord of Dao Qingshui was slightly moved. The Realm Guard Palace Master, also known as the Realm Guard, was one of the most powerful Dao protector cultivators in the entire territory of the Master of Primal Chaos. Even without using his Divine Fortune artifact, his battle prowess was not inferior to a 5-vein or 6-vein Dao protector. Once he used his Divine Fortune artifact, even the Elders of the Great Development Gate would be slightly inferior to him. Perhaps only the Sect Master with 8-vein Dao protector could contend against him. The Creation Divine artifact is of great importance and naturally requires the Temple Master to handle it personally. Lord of Dao, Qingshui nodded and said, "Then I'll wait for the Realm Guardian Temple Master to arrive." A year passed by quickly. After a year of waiting, the Realm Guardian came to the Merit Audit Office and quickly met Lord of Dao Qingshui. Then, he led Lord of Dao Qingshui to apply for the witness of the Great Lord of Chaos. At the moment of the witness, Xinghui clearly sensed a terrifying divine sense that was so powerful that it suppressed the entire war zone, penetrated from the depths of the endless chaotic void, and landed on the Merit Audit Office. The vast and endless power instantly made the millions of world creation, supremes, and sovereigns in the Merit Audit Office bow their heads in reverence. Some of them could not help but kneel in the direction of the divine sense, as if they were looking at a god. The Lord of Chaos, Xinghui, could not help but let out a long sigh when he felt the divine sense that was so powerful that it was almost substantial. The power contained in the divine sense had already made the coalescence Great Dao in his body restless and instinctively counterattacked. Obviously, his coalescence Great Dao felt that its life was threatened by the divine sense. But in reality, the divine sense's target was not him, but Lord of Dao Qingshui. His coalescence Great Dao was already restless when the Lord of Chaos divine sense did not look directly at him. Once the Lord of Chaos divine sense swept over him, all of his secrets would be exposed uncontrollably. From this point, Xinghui deeply felt the gap between himself and the Lord of Chaos. It was an immeasurable gap. It was almost equivalent to a warrior and a world creation. It was also like a mortal and a blazing sun. The blazing sun's radiance could easily illuminate the world, but a mere mortal, how small was he in front of the blazing sun? Sighing emotionally, Qing Su lowered his head, no longer daring to look directly at the Lord of Chaos's soul sense. Even though the Lord of Chaos's usage of his soul sense could be described as crude, the experience he had accumulated over countless years allowed him to use his soul sense well beyond any cultivator of the immortal path civilization. It was just that he was too lazy to put in more effort because he was used to solving problems in simple and crude ways. An emperor of an empire with a population of 1 billion and an elite army of 10 million would not put in the effort to investigate the military strength of a hostile tribe with a total population of less than 1,000 people. The Lord of Chaos divine sense appeared briefly and quickly dissipated. For a great being like him, he no longer paid special attention to the matters in his territory. Most of his attention fell on the evil gods who were eyeing him covetously and the self-evolving eternal road. A few hours after the Lord of Chaos left, Lord of Dao Qingshui returned to Xinghui's courtyard. "How was it?" Xinghui hurriedly asked. "How was it?" Lord of Dao Qingshui smiled bitterly and said, "You definitely don't want to experience the feeling of being seen through from head to toe and having all of your secrets exposed in front of the other party again." After saying that, he became slightly more serious. He took down a huge sword from his back and handed it to Tsinghui. Fortunately, I didn't let you down. Moreover, because I deliberately asked for a sword-type creation divine weapon, the Realm Guardian Temple Master also gave me a sword-type creation divine weapon as a reward. A sword-type creation divine weapon. Lord of Dao, Qing Shui, you've done me a great favor. Tsing Hui's face was filled with joy, and he immediately took the creation divine weapon. However, the moment his hand touched the creation divine weapon, the terrifying weight contained in the creation divine weapon, which seemed to form a universe of its own, exerted itself on Tsing Hui, causing his bones to creak softly. If it were not for the great Tao principles in his body that immediately shot out and injected into the creation divine weapon and entangled it, he would not have been able to hold on to the creation divine weapon and let it fall to the ground. TSK, you reacted quickly. Lord of Dao Qing Shui looked regretfully at Tsing Hui. Obviously, the prank had failed. Creation divine weapon. Tsing Hui could clearly feel the structure of the creation divine weapon. Rather than calling it a creation divine weapon, it would be better to call it a miniature chaotic universe. However, no matter how miniature the chaotic universe was, its quality was not comparable to that of ordinary great Tao forces. If anyone could use this creation divine weapon and slash out with his sword, the great Tao would collapse and the world would collapse. In fact, if the power of this creation divine weapon was fully activated, the power and quality of the creation divine weapon alone would be enough to blow up a macro world. Even a top world like the vast macro world would not be an exception. Tsing Hui, unless you plan to walk the path of a great Tao protector in the future and cultivate one kind of great Tao force to the extreme, the creation divine weapon will not be of much help to us. Moreover, because we cultivate several kinds of great Tao principles at the same time, we naturally won't be able to dig out every kind of great Tao principle to the extreme. If we force ourselves to use the creation divine weapon, it's like a child waving a sword. If we're not careful, we'll hurt ourselves. There are both pros and cons. Lord of Dao Qing Shui did not understand why Tsing Hui would spend so much effort to exchange for a creation divine weapon. However, Tsing Hui did not explain and only smiled. Although a child may hurt himself by waving a sword, it's much more of a deterrent to the enemy than fighting with bare hands. That's true, but I always feel that this is not the most beneficial choice. Lord of Dao, Qing Shui shrugged and did not try to persuade him. Anyway, the merit points from killing a divine master are yours. You can spend it however you want. Explosion complete. Chapter 9:14. Tsing Hui wanted to exchange for a creation artifact, and his ultimate goal was naturally the Scarlet Abyss Sword. After obtaining the creation artifact, he did not carefully study the mysteries of the creation artifact and directly handed it over to the Scarlet Abyss Sword. He had the Scarlet Abyss Sword circulate its cloud-weaving sword Tao to begin devouring the creation artifact. However, the creation artifact was far more powerful than ordinary artifacts. Even though Tsing Hui continuously circulated the power of the Grand Unity Tao, it still took a long time. For a time, Qing Su had no choice but to use over 40,000 contribution points to exchange for some cultivation resources for the people of the chaotic origin sword sect. Afterwards, he returned to the divine wilderness great world and entered secluded cultivation as quickly as he could. He did his best to assist the Scarlet Abyss Sword in devouring the fortune artifact completely within 1,000 years. Time flowed, and day and night were unwilling to part. 1,000 years passed in a hurry. In order to allow the Scarlet Abyss Sword to completely devour and refine the creation artifact before the Great Development Sex operation to kill the ancestral Qilin, Tsing Hui continuously circulated the Grand Unity Tao for 1,000 years without rest. If not for the fact that his body already had a simulated immortal Tao civilization world, which was similar to the Origin Sacred Body Sealed environment that allowed the Grand Tao laws to circulate endlessly, he might have been exhausted to death by such a high output, even though he was a creature of chaos. Fortunately, Under this almost non-stop high-intensity refinement, Tsing finally allowed the Scarlet Abyss Sword to completely devour the creation artifact 20 years before the Great Development Sex operation to kill the ancestral Qilin. As the Scarlet Abyss Sword devoured the creation artifact, it transformed into the creation artifact structure. Tsing could clearly feel the Scarlet Abyss Sword's huge changes from inside out. At this moment, the Scarlet Abyss Sword was no longer the Scarlet Abyss Sword, but an extension of the chaotic universe created by Tsing Hui's Grand Unity Tao. He and the Scarlet Abyss Sword were like the primordial land of the immortal Tao civilization world and the 33 heavens floating above it. The only difference was that his primeval land was a simulation and did not live up to its name. On the other hand, the Scarlet Abyss Sword's 33 heavens were real and completely a part of the immortal Tao civilization. So this is the true chaos life form. Compared to the small worlds of those who can create worlds with a single thought, the greatest characteristic of the chaos life form is limitless. Tsing quietly sensed the Scarlet Abyss Sword in his hand. How do you feel? Father, I feel very heavy. The Scarlet Abyss Sword spirit's tone was intermittent. Is it very heavy? Tsing understood the reason for Scarlet Abyss reaction. This was related to the current state of the Scarlet Abyss Sword. Strictly speaking, life forms at the primal chaos realm, the chaos verse they created, and the world of worlds they created were essentially the same. The reason why there was such a huge difference was because of the difference between the chaos verse and the world. It was the size and the increasing size. It was just like how a hill was made up of soil, and a star was also made up of soil. However, the hill could be razed to the ground, but who had the ability to dig up the entire star? Especially, it was extremely slow for a hill to become a mountain range, but this star was constantly absorbing meteors and satellites from the outside world to strengthen itself. Perhaps humans had just moved 100,000 tons of soil, but the star had already attracted a satellite to increase its mass by 1 trillion tons. Under such circumstances, the hill would never be able to reach or catch up to the star's growth. Buzz buzz. Within Tsing Hui's body, the laws of the great Tao poured into the Scarlet Abyss Sword. How do you feel now? Much more relaxed. Right now, I feel like I've become incomparably huge, incomparably powerful. However, I can only truly unleash this power with your help. Otherwise, if I rely on myself, the power I can use is equivalent to the tip of the iceberg. I understand. Tsing Hui's own comprehension, in addition to his conversation with the Scarlet Abyss Sword spirit, allowed him to fully understand the changes of the Scarlet Abyss Sword. A divine creation artifact usually doesn't have an artifact spirit. Having the Scarlet Abyss Sword spirit will make it easier for me to unleash the Scarlet Abyss Sword's power. As long as I can continuously pour energy into it, the Scarlet Abyss Sword will never be damaged, and its power will be guaranteed to be limitless under the highest circumstances. Although he understood the various changes of the Scarlet Abyss Sword, the time was too short. 20 years did not allow Tsing to spend too much time and effort to continue researching the other powers of the Scarlet Abyss Sword. As he continuously increased the compatibility between his own laws of the Great Tao and the Scarlet Abyss Sword, he moved as fast as he could, heading straight for the Great Development Gate's encampment. After 10 years of hurrying, Tsing finally arrived at the Great Development Gate's encampment in the Great Development Sky. As this was a large-scale internal operation of the Great Development Gate, when Tsing arrived at the Great Development Sky, almost all the members of the Great Development Gate, who were usually cultivating in seclusion, rushed back. The auras of over 100 great masters, who were at least equivalent to experts, intertwined, forming a huge network that suppressed the world. Some cultivators who had not even cultivated the origin sacred body would be pushed back by the overlapping auras of the Great Tao just by approaching their circle. They might not even be able to stand in front of everyone. Sword God Tsing you're here. I haven't seen you in a while, Sword God Tsing. As Tsing appeared in the Great Development Gate, Heavenly Master Dragon Sword, Tao Lord Clearwater, and In Kongzi, who had cooperated with Xing Hui before, smiled and greeted him at the same time. Xing Hui also nodded at the three of them. Sword God Xing Hui, I just received news that your name is among the teams that signed up to hunt down the ancestral Qilin. Do you plan to go as well? Heavenly Master Dragon Sword asked curiously. That's right. I want to try my luck. The ancestral Qilin is one of the divine beasts that is least skilled in battle and slaughter. As long as the Green Ruin Sword God is careful, you won't be in too much danger. However, you have to remember not to charge onto the front lines and fight the ancestral Qilin. The experts who have died over the years have basically all died because they were unable to control their greed and desires. Coupled with the fact that they failed to measure the difference between themselves and the ancestral Qilin, they all died in the encirclement of the ancestral Qilin. Heavenly Master Dragon Sword said cautiously. In Kongzi, who was at the side, added, Heavenly Master Dragon Sword has participated in 2 divine beast encirclements and survived both times. We should ask him for advice. Oh, Xing Hui could not help but look at Heavenly Master Dragon Sword in surprise. Heavenly Master Dragon Sword could only smile bitterly and shake his head. Back then, I was burdened with a blood feud. Naturally, I wanted to obtain great power at all costs. That was why I took risks time and time again and participated in the first 2 divine beast encirclements. However, in the first battle, I only circled around the periphery a few times. I was frightened by the violent battle scene several times. If not for my good luck, I might not have made it back alive. As for the second time, I was able to obtain a great Tao nomological fragment. It was also a coincidence. Coincidence? Who doesn't happen to them? We were able to cultivate to this day and become top experts standing at the top of the world. Isn't it also because of coincidence and the blessings of the heavens? Tao Lord Clearwater said. When they heard that, they agreed. If their luck was extremely bad, they would not be standing in the Great Development Gate today and enjoying the glory of being at the pinnacle of the world of experts. Heavenly Master Dragon Sword, do you have any other suggestions? Xing Hui asked. Heavenly Master Dragon Sword pondered for a moment and said cautiously, Don't forget your true goal. Whether it's us, the Great Development Gate Master, or the Elders, our ultimate goal is not to kill the ancestral Qilin. The ancestral Qilin has been strengthened and replenished by the great Tao power of countless divine beasts and cultivators. Perhaps in terms of size, it can't compare to a true evil god or chaotic being, but in terms of recovery and endurance, it is not inferior to an evil god. Never think of exhausting a divine beast ancestor or completely killing it. Our true goal has always been only one, and that is the great Tao fragments in their bodies. Recovery and endurance are not inferior to an evil god or chaotic being. Xing Hui was no longer as ignorant as before about evil gods and chaotic beings. On the contrary, he had a full understanding of these terrifying existences. The more he understood how terrifying chaotic beings and evil gods were. Even if the ancestral Qilin did not possess the body of an evil god or a primal chaos life form, its astonishing recovery ability was enough to allow it to reach a state of near indestructibility. Unless a true evil god attacked, even if the ancestral Qilin stood there and did not fight back, the Grand Development Gate would still need tens of thousands of years to kill the ancestral Qilin. Never fight a divine beast ancestor head-on. What you need to do is wait for an opportunity to tear a law fragment from the ancestral Qilin's body. Moreover, it must be 100% chance. Any mistake can cause us to pay a heavy price, and this price is very likely our lives. Heavenly Master Dragon Sword's expression was extremely serious when he said this. Xing Hui also humbly accepted Heavenly Master Dragon Sword's advice. The guidance of a powerhouse who could survive the encirclement of 2 mythological beasts was definitely precious. Moreover, they had to deal with the mythological beast ancestor that was more than 10 times stronger than an ultimate powerhouse. Even if it was the mythological beast ancestor that was not good at killing, he could not be too careful. Just as everyone was talking, a sound came from the crowd. Then, 6 figures floated out from the depths of the Great Development Gate and landed on a high platform in the square where everyone was gathered. The Gate Master is here. Lord Gate Master and the 5 Great Elders. Great Development Saint Master, Unparalleled Realm Master, Annihilation Realm Master, Giant Dragon City Master, Bamboo Shadow Sword Master, Emperor Bai. Many of the Great Development Gate's disciples looked at the 6 top powerhouses descending from the sky, and their expressions were filled with reverence. These 6 were the ultimate experts who supported the entire Great Development Gate, and they also represented the pinnacle of the entire cultivation world. Although there were 2 or 3 others who relied on the creation divine weapons that were extremely compatible with them to barely reach the ultimate expert level, there were obvious flaws, and they could not be considered ultimate experts. Chapter 9:15. The mission this time has already been distributed to everyone 2,000 years ago. Since everyone has decided to sign up, it means that you're all prepared. As such, there's no need for idle chatter. We've already locked onto the ancestral Cheelance location. Time is of the essence, and we're planning to depart now. If you withdraw now, it'll be your last chance. The Dayan Holy Sage's calm voice reverberated in the void. Although it was not loud, it rang in everyone's mind. 8 great path precepts. Sing Hui looked at the Dayan Holy Sage in front of him. Light flowed in his eyes, as if he could see the special connection between the Dayan Gate Master and the void. Under the effect of this connection, he seemed to have resonated with some kind of existence in the unseen world, so much so that he faintly touched an unknown realm. It was probably this connection that prompted him to create the Dayan Gate, which prompted him to kill the divine beast ancestor time and time again. He wanted to truly merge the great path precepts of the 12 divine beasts into one and advance to the realm of being on par with the evil god, or even the realm of creation. After the Dayan Holy Sage finished speaking, none of the 89 people present chose to withdraw. As a great path master, he would not make a decision easily. However, once he made a decision, it would be difficult for others to change it. Very good. Looks like no one has withdrawn. Then, the Dayan Holy Sage had a faint smile on his face. Then, he waved his hand and did not waste any time. Let's go. Then, the 6 ultimate powerhouses took the lead and leaped up. The remaining 89 people who had signed up followed the 6 ultimate powerhouses, forming a huge team of 95 people. They directly left the Dayan sky and headed toward the border of the chaotic void and the master of chaos territory. Not a single one of these 95 people was weak. Among them, the 6 supreme powerhouses were even figures who could preserve their lives before the incarnations of the Master of Chaos, the Master of Time, and the Master of Gods. If they swarmed together, even the incarnation of the evil god would have to avoid them, let alone ordinary cultivators. This time, I'll treat it as gaining experience. It'll be great if I can get a great path fragment, but if I can't, I won't force it. Lord of Daoqing Shui sighed as she followed beside Xinghui. This time, the Grand Development Gate has made a big move. 95 members, which is unprecedented. I reckon the harvest will not be small. That's for those few utmost powerful beings. We should still follow Heavenly Sovereign Dragon Sword's words and try our best to be careful. Lord of Daoqing Shui had a very proper attitude. He had an expression of, I'm lucky to have it, but if I don't, it's my fate. Xinghui didn't say much and quickly followed the group. Unlike the others, he decided to obtain some Grand Dao fragments. Only in this way would he be able to advance the speed of his cultivation and find the origin disk even faster, and it would establish the foundation for taking that final step. Under the lead of the Grand Yin Holy Master and a few elders, the group traveled quickly. They would occasionally enter the Master of Chaos territory and occasionally enter the Chaos Void. As the team continued to move forward, Xinghui gradually sensed the abnormality in the void. He could vaguely sense waves of invisible energy being drawn from the billions of worlds in the master of primal chaos territory and poured into a certain spot in the primal chaos void. After reaching that spot, the invisible energy would continue to feed back and fill every corner of the master of primal chaos territory, causing some unknown changes. According to Tsing Hui's guess, these changes should be related to providence. The Grand Tao precepts controlled by the Qilan divine beast govern providence, opportunities, and so on. It didn't have any effect on one's combat strength, but in many cases, it could exert incredible effects. For example, when breaking through a realm, failure was imminent, but a little bit of luck could turn the crisis into safety. Another example was when refining a divine weapon failed on the verge of success. A little bit of providence could turn the situation around. This kind of energy was invisible, but it truly existed. Even almighty beings who were so powerful that they could transform their bodies into paths dared not say that their lives would not be affected by opportunities, providence, and other mysterious factors. The Master of Chaos is gathering the providence of the entire territory on the Qilan divine beast and trying to push it to the level of a chaotic being. Tsing Hui looked at the surging providence in front of him and sighed in his heart. We're almost there. Everyone, restrain your aura. The Dayan Holy Sage's voice was transmitted to everyone's mind. At that moment, all the almighty beings retracted their Grand Tao precepts aura. At the same time, the Dayan Holy Sage waved his hand, and an invisible curtain of light enveloped everyone. For a moment, Tsing Hui clearly felt that the void he was in seemed to be cut apart by a mysterious force, making him independent of the world. It should be known that they were in the chaos void where precepts did not exist. To achieve this kind of space-cutting technique, a creation artifact, Tsing Hui quickly understood the source of this power. It was extremely difficult for any cultivator to obtain a creation artifact. Whether it was destroying the ultimate god system or killing 10 superior gods, the slightest carelessness could bring fatal threats to the cultivator. After all, the ultimate gods in the Master of God's territory were different from the top almighty beings in the Master of Chaos territory. The Master of Gods did not have much property and had very few ultimate gods. If they were killed, it was very likely that the Master of Gods would seek revenge. On the other hand, the Master of Chaos had a huge property and did not feel any heartache even if a bunch of almighty beings died. Under such circumstances, even the strongest almighty beings would probably only have 1 or 2 creation artifacts at most. As everyone retracted their aura and moved deeper into the void, after flying for another half a month, a terrifying creature that was entrenched between the chaos void and the Master of Chaos territory appeared in front of them. It was a colossal creature that was as large as 10 trillion kilometers. It was entrenched in the void and constantly absorbed many streams of light from within the Master of Chaos territory to replenish itself. At the same time, it fed the streams of light back to the billions of worlds and billions of living beings in the Master of Chaos territory. Although its body was similar to the divine beast Qilan, it was not a physical body at all. In fact, it was countless tiny streams of light of different strengths. These streams of light were the power of precepts. Besieging the divine beast ancestor was not to kill him. In fact, it was to tear the power of precept from his body and condense them into precepts fragments. When they were still a distance away from the Qilan ancestor, the group stopped. Emperor Bai, the Grand Sage said. As an elder, Emperor Bai nodded and started to set up in the void. Light spots formed rapidly and absorbed the power of precepts that were going to enter the Qilan ancestor's body. At the same time, the giant Dragon City Master started to set up a formation. However, his formation was different from other formations. Instead of calling it a formation, it was more like an energy pool. Energy pools that were more than 10,000 kilometers in diameter filled the void. Very soon, there were more than 1,000 of them. Above the energy pools, a city that was more than 100 million kilometers in size gradually appeared. There were 7 chain-like existences in the city that were connected to the giant Dragon City Master. They continued to absorb energy from the giant dragon city master. In addition to the replenishment from the energy pools, the city gradually became clearer. In the center of the city, a huge cannon that looked like a dragon head was pushed out from the city wall and aimed at the Chilean ancestor. Other than that, Destruction Sector Lord, Wu E Sector Lord, Bamboo Shadow Sword Master, and a few others also started to set up their own formations. They even called everyone into the formation to become a part of a large-scale formation. A disk completely condensed from light and laws appeared in the grand, yin holy exalt's hand. The disk shone with light, causing both the ripples of energy from everyone and the gradually trembling, chaotic space to calm down rapidly. It was as if all the disturbances in space had been suppressed and smoothed out by an invisible force, such that they no longer existed. There are three major variables in the encirclement of the Chilean ancestor. The first is that the Guardians are taking advantage of the situation. The second is the attitude of the Master of Chaos. The last and most terrifying one is that the evil gods that are roaming outside will sense the fluctuations of the battle and intervene. The leader of the Grand Evolution sect has a mystical technique that can seal a huge void, causing 99% of the information in the void to be unable to be transmitted out in a short period of time. It is almost like stopping time for everything that is not living things. Under such circumstances, no matter how much we fight, we will not be noticed by anyone. Lord of Dao Qingshui's formation was not far away from Xinghui. At that moment, he was communicating with his divine will. In order to participate in this operation, he had done a lot of preparation. Xinghui nodded and looked at the Chilean ancestor. Although the supreme experts of the Grand Evolution sect had destinable divine artifacts to conceal their auras as they attacked one by one, their auras could no longer be concealed. The Chilean ancestor, who was constantly devouring and feeding back the power of precepts, immediately sensed it. In particular, when he sensed that he was being targeted by the cannon of the giant dragon city's city master, he roared and charged toward them at an incredible speed. As he charged, the ball of light that represented the endless power of precepts shot out endless streams of light at the same time. A mighty torrent of precepts followed closely behind him. However, strangely, the Chilean ancestor's violent movements and the rich power of precepts that swept out did not make any sound. Even the surrounding chaotic primal chi did not seem to be affected and was swept away in all directions. Instead, it was directly swept away, repelled, and annihilated by the power of precepts on the Chilean ancestor's body. This method is infinitely close to stopping time. Xinghui felt a chill run down his spine. Suddenly, light shone brightly. The huge cannon above the giant dragon city's city master's head suddenly shot out a stream of light that lit up the chaotic void and tore through the universe. This stream of light was like a peerless divine sword. With incredible speed, it slashed the Chilean ancestor's body that was engulfed in the power of precepts. Suddenly, white light collided with white light. Circles of white light that represented the power of precepts sputtered out from the Chilean ancestor's body and dissipated into the surroundings. It was quickly captured and absorbed by the formation that Emperor by its setup. The illusory power of precepts was then refined into precepts fragments. This is a piece of precepts fragment. Water Lord Qing Shui looked at Emperor Bai, who was setting up the formation and absorbing the power of precepts, with a tinge of envy in her eyes. The giant dragon city's city master shot out 3 streams of light at the same time, blasting 3 holes in the Chilean ancestor's body. A large number of precepts fragments sputtered out. However, 3 attacks was the limit. The Chilean ancestor had already crossed the distance between the two of them and charged toward the battle formation formed by the 95 experts of the Great Development Sect. The close combat had officially begun. Chapter 9:16. The first to bear the brunt of the attack was the Bamboo Shadow Sword Master and the Realm Lord of Annihilation. A green bamboo forest rose into the sky, turning into a mirage and piercing into the Chilean ancestor's body. Countless bamboo shadows transformed into sword chi and collided with the Chilean progenitor's radiant power of laws. Soon, the bamboo forest was annihilated. The only effect was that the laws in the area were slightly thinner. On the Chilean progenitor's body, the flowing law radiance around his abdomen dimmed slightly. Then, the realm lord of annihilation stepped forward. His entire body was like a black hole, constantly devouring and destroying the incoming power of law. As the laws collided with each other, the Chilean ancestor's body, which had already dimmed a little, dimmed even more. From afar, it looked like a black spot had appeared on a glowing body. However, the devouring did not last long, and it was still full. In the end, the realm lord of annihilation had to reduce the devouring range, choosing to protect himself. Prepare to attack. As the realm lord of annihilation retreated, the grand, yin heavenly sovereign shouted. In the next moment, the Chilean ancestor, who was like a huge ball of light, had already collided with the battle formation formed by the 95 experts of the Grand Development Sect. In an instant, Tsing Hui, Lord of Tao Clearwater, and everyone in the Grand Development Sect seemed to be in a sea of light. The light of law was flying rapidly in all directions. When the light of law collided with the great path laws of the cultivators, it was destroyed, offset, and deflected. It was a constant battle of attrition. Some of the 4 to 6 vein level cultivators couldn't help but leave their positions when they saw the large amount of power of laws splattering in front of them. They grabbed at the air and caught a large amount of the light of laws. They circulated their own laws to refine it. Although this light of laws wasn't enough to refine it into law fragments, it could still greatly increase a cultivator's comprehension of the great path laws of the Chilean divine beast. When Tsing Hui saw this, he did not hesitate and followed the others to collect the great path laws that were like balls of light. Seeing this, Lord of Tao Clearwater was shocked and hurriedly said, "Sword God Tsing Hui, don't act rashly. You'll attract the Chilean ancestors' attack." Almost as soon as Lord of Tao Clearwater finished speaking, the surroundings of the great masters who were collecting the power of law changed at the same time. The density of the power of law attacking them increased by several times. Countless laws that were like flowing lights were like a storm, rushing rain, rushing towards them. Those with stronger cultivations could naturally rely on the power of the formation to resist, but those with weaker cultivations would immediately be in danger. One of the great masters, who was only at the 3-vein level, had the seal formed by his power of laws quickly broken through by the dense streams of laws. The streams of laws quickly passed through his body. The light of Tao Clearwater, the great master of Tao Clearwater, as well as the great masters of Tao Clearwaters as of Tao. However, it didn't take long for the aura of the great divine ability user to undergo a drastic change. His spiritual fluctuations also became extremely unstable. The of Tao's of Tao's of Tao, of his ofs. Tsing Hui saw the problem with the great master of Tao Clearwater at a glance. It was not a big deal that there was a problem with the operation of law. It was just like how a person might choke while drinking water. Most people would not be affected except for a short period of discomfort. But when a person's luck was at its lowest, choking to death while drinking water or eating food would become a matter of course in the eyes of ordinary people. Now, the great master of Tao Clearwater had a problem with the operation of law, which led to chi deviation. It was just like how a person choked to death while drinking water. It was hard to believe, but it was a matter of course. This was the Chilean ancestors' great path law attack. Perhaps it was not strong and could not destroy the enemy fundamentally, but the lethality it contained was equally strange and terrifying. It was impossible to guard against. Tsing Hui, be careful. The light of Tao Clearwater is coming for you. Just as Tsing Hui was inwardly awed, Tao Lord Clearwater's voice suddenly rang out. As Tsing Hui had refined a portion of the Great Path Law at the same time, the Great Path Law around him became denser. Countless Great Path Law lights, formed by the Great Path Law, were like a dense meteor shower that struck Tsing Hui's body. Tsing Hui's Golden Crow and Torch Dragon Great Path Law powers were instantly overwhelmed. They could no longer withstand the impact of the Great Path Law lights, and were on the verge of collapse. As expected, if a 1-vein, 2-vein, or 3-vein cultivator wants to intercept the power of laws in this environment and refine it into law fragments, they're simply seeking death. Even if a 4-vein, 5-vein, or 6-vein powerhouse is targeted by the Qilin progenitor, only death awaits them. Tsing Hui thought to himself as the Scarlet Abyss sword appeared in his hand. Just as the Great Path Law lights tore through his Great Path Law defenses and were about to pass through his body, he brazenly stabbed out with his sword. Buzz, buzz! As Tsing Hui stabbed out with his sword, the surrounding space that seemed to have been frozen in time actually trembled slightly, spreading out waves of ripples. These ripples instantly turned into shock waves when Tsing Hui's Scarlet Abyss sword collided with the first Great Path Law light. They were so powerful that they could be called destructive shock waves. The dense Great Path Law lights were rapidly annihilated under the impact of these shock waves. They were like sand sculptures that were within the range of a bomb's shock waves, disintegrating on the spot. For a moment, the dense Great Path Law lights that were rushing towards Tsing Hui could not help but clear up a little. The cultivators who were trying their best to resist the Great Path Law lights were naturally unaware of this sudden change. However, the Grand Derivation Holy Sage, who had stopped all the energy fluctuations in the area, and the supreme experts who were resisting the Great Path Law lights more easily, sensed this change at the same time. Their gazes all turned towards Tsing Hui at the same time. To be exact, their gazes landed on the Scarlet Abyss sword in Tsing Hui's hand. This is a destinable divine weapon. The Grand Derivation Holy Sage sized up the Scarlet Abyss sword for a moment and could not help but reveal a trace of shock on his face. A destinable divine weapon that is completely compatible with him. He has the power of the Great Path of the Golden Crow and the Torch Dragon in him. He is not a guardian who has excavated the power of the Great Path Law to the extreme. If he does not excavate the power of the Great Path Law to the extreme, how can he bear the power of a destinable divine weapon? How can he unleash the true power of a destinable divine weapon? The giant Dragon City Master, Emperor Bai, the Rui Realm Lord, the Bamboo Shadow Sword Master, and the others were all shocked. As a result, the Bamboo Shadow Sword Master, who was too distracted, was almost invaded by the dense Great Path Law lights. Fortunately, he had a powerful treasure on him that quickly repelled the Great Path Law lights, allowing him to escape from danger. The giant Dragon City Master, Emperor Bai, the Rui Realm Lord, and the others who were filled with curiosity and confusion about the crisis that befell the Bamboo Shadow Sword Master. They were besieging the ancestor of the godly beasts, the Qilin. It was not the time for them to be distracted. If they were not careful, even the most powerful of them could die. If they had any questions, it would not be too late to ask them after the battle. At the thought of this, the few most powerful of them quickly shifted their gazes. However, when they were free, they diverted some of their attention to Tsing Hui. After all, it was too important for them to be able to unleash the true power of a destinable divine weapon. If they, who had cultivated 7 or 8 types of Great Path Law, could still use the destinable divine weapon and unleash the full power of the treasure, their fighting power would definitely increase by another level. By then, it would be much easier for them to kill the other ancestor of the godly beasts to obtain more fragments of the Great Path Law lights. Sword God Tsing Hui. You are, seeing that Tsing Hui was able to shatter all the nomological light streams around him. Lord of Water Dao's eyes widened. Then, he seemed to have thought of something. Could it be that destinable divine weapon? Tsing Hui nodded slightly and said at the same time, it's related to that destinable divine weapon. I can't explain it to you in detail. Hiss, you can unleash the full power of a destinable divine weapon. This is something that only the owner of a destinable divine weapon can do. Lord of Water, Dao, finally understood why Tsing Hui chose to exchange the merit points of killing an ultimate god for a destinable divine weapon. If he had such ability, he would also try to get a destinable divine weapon. Lord of Water Dao, come closer to me. As long as the nomological light streams are not too dense, I can still help you a little. Tsing Hui said. Thank you, sword god Tsing Hui. Lord of Water Dao was overjoyed. At that moment, Tsing Hui continued to collect the power of laws without attracting too much hostility from the Qilin ancestor. He then condensed the power of laws into the nomological fragments. In the first round of attack, the people from the Great Development Sect did not suffer any other losses except for a greedy three-stripe great ability user. Of course, there were a few people who were penetrated by the nomological light streams and had a part of their luck taken away. However, they clearly had the protection of other treasures. In addition to their stable realms and exquisite cultivation, they did not suffer from Qigong deviation like the three-stripe great ability user and died tragically. The first round of attack did not kill the people from the Great Development Sect. Instead, they lost a lot of power of laws. The Qilin ancestor was furious. His body that was completely composed of nomological light streams suddenly turned, and a sharp claw condensed from a large number of nomological light streams directly grabbed the 6 supreme experts who were setting up the formation. Although the sharp claw was also composed of nomological light, the density of nomological light streams was beyond everyone's imagination. It was like a dazzling sun that emitted a light that made people not dare to look directly at it. Change the formation. The Dayan Heavenly Sovereign growled, and the formation quickly changed. However, with the formation, while its resistance was strengthened, it naturally sacrificed a lot of flexibility. Although the Dayan Heavenly Sovereign changed the formation in time to avoid the core of the Qilin ancestors' thunderous attack, under the impact of the dense nomological light streams, many great ability users who were in danger still disregarded the stability of the formation and escaped. In this way, they naturally kept their lives, but the formation became fragmented. Seeing this, the Dayan Heavenly Sovereign stopped rearranging the formation and said faintly, "Let's rely on our own abilities from now on." Chapter 9:17. Be careful. Seeing the formation disperse, Qing Su called out to Dao Lord Clearwater. Lord of Dao Clearwater looked at the Qilin progenitor wreaking havoc and smiled bitterly. A battle of this level isn't something I can easily get involved in. I'll leave the battlefield and attack if I have the chance. If not, I'll just treat it as an experience. All right. Tsing Hui nodded. Lord of Dao Clearwater quickly flew out of the Qilin progenitor's enormous body. Since the Qilin progenitor's main firepower was attracted by the 6 sovereigns of the Great Development Sect, he was too lazy to deliberately target Lord of Dao Clearwater's departure. In fact, it wasn't just Lord of Dao Clearwater. After the formation was destroyed and everyone fought their own battles, more than a dozen 1-vein to 3-vein great masters left the battlefield. They originally thought that the Qilin progenitor's battle prowess was weaker than the other divine beast ancestors, so they wanted to get a share of the loot. However, when the real battle erupted, they discovered that even though the Qilin progenitor was much weaker than the other divine beast ancestors, he was still far stronger than ordinary great masters like them. If they continued to fight, they would only be throwing their lives away. Therefore, they decisively chose to leave the battlefield. Although more than a dozen 1-vein to 3-vein great masters left, there were still 70 or 80 cultivators left. The Qilin progenitor still had a hard time being surrounded. His power of laws was constantly being stripped away by various methods and refined into law fragments. The battle didn't last long. Everyone obtained at least 20 law fragments from the Qilin progenitor. Most of them belonged to the sovereigns. The remaining 5-vein and 6-vein great masters also got a few. Tsing Hui took advantage of the fact that the Qilin progenitor was distracted by the 6 sovereigns to absorb a large amount of power of laws and condense it into a law fragment. This operation wasn't completely fruitless. there are fewer and fewer people. When Tsing Hui completed the smelting of the second nomological fragment, he could clearly feel a certain amount of pressure. Even though the Qilin ancestor spent most of his energy on dealing with the six sovereigns, there were fewer and fewer people who stood in his way. Coupled with the fact that the Qilin ancestor had consciously shrunk his body to increase the density of the streams of laws, the streams of laws would still reach Qing Su from time to time, even with the Scarlet Abyss sword in hand. As the battle progressed, the number of great masters who had died had already broken through to 6. The 6 of them included a 5-vein and 2 4-vein attendants. Condense another law fragment and then leave the battle, Tsing Hui thought to himself. He grabbed at the air, and a large amount of flowing light of laws began to condense in his hand. Under the binding of his power of the Great Path, they began to melt the law fragments. However, perhaps because he was a little too impatient, or perhaps because the number of combatants had already been reduced to less than 50, his actions immediately attracted the attention of the Qilin ancestor. Immediately, streams of laws that were much denser than before immediately whistled towards the green ruins like a storm. Oh no! Seeing this scene, Tsing Hui did not hesitate to give up on condensing the law fragments. He retreated rapidly, using all his strength to dodge the attacks of the nomological light. At the same time, he stabbed out with the deep red sword in his hand. It seemed to contain the power of a chaotic universe as it vibrated in front of him, causing the storm of nomological light to shatter and explode. An empty black hole seemed to appear in front of him. However, this black hole did not stop for a moment. More nomological light surged over, filling up the black hole in an instant. Even though Tsing Hui had used this precious time to dodge, more than 6 nomological light still rushed toward him and pierced through his body. The moment the nomological light pierced through his body, Tsing Hui's illusory world, which was formed from the Great Path of Unity and the 49 Great Path nomological laws, shook violently. An indescribable malfunction seemed to occur in the operation of the Great Path, and it looked like it was about to collapse. Fortunately, Tsing Hui had used the Great Path of Unity and the 49 Great Path nomological laws to create the illusory world of immortal Tao civilization. Moreover, his world was illusory and not real. Although the 6 nomological light streams that passed through his body caused the world of immortal Tao civilization to shake, they did not cause the entire world to collapse. It did not cause him to fall into the terrible situation of his world collapsing. Even so, this sudden tremor still caused Tsing Hui to break out in a cold sweat. I can't continue like this. Perhaps my attacks with the deep red sword have reached a level that is not inferior to that of an ultimate powerhouse, but the techniques I have are too simple. In the end, I can't compare to a true ultimate powerhouse. At the very least, I can't block the violent attacks of these nomological light streams. When he thought of this, Tsing Hui turned around and headed toward the periphery of the Qilin ancestor's body. The closer he got to the periphery, the fewer nomological light streams there were, and the degree of danger was greatly reduced. It was like a star. Although its core and surface were both shining brightly, the difference in temperature between the two was like heaven and earth. There was no danger in the periphery, but correspondingly, it was much more difficult for them to intercept nomological light streams and refine them into nomological fragments. Tsing Hui did not completely leave the Qilin ancestor's body. He stayed at the periphery, trying his best to intercept as much nomological power as possible and refine them into nomological fragments. However, compared to the condensation speed at the center, the efficiency at the periphery was more than 10 times slower. So be it, Tsing Hui said to himself. He now had 2 nomological fragments. It would be best if he could successfully condense the third one, but if he could not, he would not force it. Just as Tsing Hui was carefully condensing the third nomological fragment, an extremely strong stream of light suddenly exploded. Immediately after, One of the sharp claws on the Qilin ancestor's body that contained a large amount of nomological power was torn off by the bamboo shadow sword master and sent flying into the void. Seeing this scene, the eyes of all the powerful beings lit up. They quickly rushed toward the claw that had been cut off, each of them doing their best to plunder the nomological power contained in the claw and refine it into nomological fragments. Even Dao, Lord Qing Shui, who had been watching from the side, was no exception. Great harvest! Great harvest! It's definitely a great harvest. The nomological power in this claw can be refined into at least 10 nomological fragments. I finally have a chance. Thank you, Elder Zhuing. In an instant, the claw that had been cut off was surrounded by more than 40 powerful beings. Each of them unleashed their techniques to the extreme in a futile attempt to refine the nomological power in the Qilin ancestor's claw. Rumble. After being cut off, the Qilin ancestor seemed to be completely enraged. He roared furiously and his body struggled madly. In an instant, he managed to break free from the Dayan Holy Master's special space-time, Abijna. In an instant, a terrifying roar mixed with chaotic aura swept out in all directions. It was as if a violent storm had formed, blowing away all the powerful beings who were rushing toward the Qilin ancestor's claw. After breaking free from the restraining power, the nomological power from the Master of Chaos territory that Emperor Bai had been trying to refine into nomological fragments quickly broke through Emperor Bai's formation and entered the Qilin ancestor's body. This caused the nomological power in the Qilin ancestor's body to recover rapidly. In fact, it was as if it had exploded and continued to grow. With the replenishment of the nomological power, the Qilin ancestor became even more valiant. As the bamboo shadow sword master had cut off one of his claws, the Qilin ancestor stared at the bamboo shadow sword master this time. He attacked the bamboo shadow sword master relentlessly. Chance! Seeing that the Qilin ancestor was completely enraged by the bamboo shadow sword master, Sing Hui's eyes flashed. He charged into the Qilin ancestor's body and used all his strength to steal the nomological power from the Qilin ancestor's body. Although the Qilin ancestor was furious that a large amount of nomological power had been stolen, he used many nomological powers to attack Sing Hui. However, his real focus was on the bamboo shadow sword master. The nomological powers that he used could not do any real damage to Sing Hui, who had the divine sword Red Abyss. The fierce and mighty battle swept up waves of terrifying torrents, crazily reverberating in the void for hundreds of trillions of kilometers. If this battlefield was moved to the void, it would not take long for an entire galaxy to be destroyed. After being stared at by the Qilin ancestor, the bamboo shadow sword master could not hold on for much longer. Even though the Dayan Holy Master, Destruction Sector Master, Wu Yi Sector Master, Giant Dragon City Master, and the others were attacking the Qilin ancestor to distract him, and Emperor Bai was helping the bamboo shadow sword master block the nomological power storm created by the Qilin ancestor, the bamboo shadow sword master was still unable to hold on. The Qilin ancestor has gone mad. The bamboo shadow sword master cannot hold on any longer. We have already gained enough. Let's not make any unnecessary sacrifices. Let's go. Seeing this, the Dayan Holy Master made a prompt decision and shouted, I will cover the rear. Retreat. Many of the Grand Development Gates, Almighty Masters, had already refined the Qilin's claw. Seeing how crazy the Qilin progenitor was, they didn't dare to face it head-on. After receiving the order from the Grand Development Holy Sage, they quickly soared into the sky and flew towards the Master of Primal Chaos territory at full speed. It's time to leave. No one can stop the crazy Qilin ancestor. Once the Grand Yin Holy Master and the others leave, the Qilin ancestor, who has nowhere to vent his anger, will set his sights on me. I'm afraid that only death awaits me. I've already completed the condensation of the fourth fragment. The harvest is definitely plentiful. It's enough. At this moment, Qing Su dared not waste any more time. He quickly joined the fleeing group from the Grand Development Sect, running towards the territory of the Master of Primal Chaos as quickly as he could. The 12 mythical beast ancestors were special life forms that were between normal life forms and chaotic life forms. They could not enter the Master of Chaos territory. As long as they could return to the Master of Chaos territory, they would be out of danger. Chapter 9:18. I didn't expect to be able to obtain a nomological fragment. What a pleasant surprise. Tao Lord Qing Shui followed Xing Hui back quickly, his face full of joy. There were also many great existences from the Grand Development Gate next to him. Even though not all of them were able to obtain a law fragment, they more or less collected some of the power of laws. They digested this power of laws, and at the same time, they were able to increase their comprehension of this particular law. Under these circumstances, everyone was in a good mood. The operation this time was indeed successful. The great divination Holy Sage and the others managed the operation well. First, they caught the Qilin progenitor off guard and plundered many nomological fragments. When the Qilin progenitor broke free and was about to explode, they calmly retreated and minimized the losses. Because of this, each of us was able to return with a full load. Xing Hui nodded slightly. That's right. The losses this time were the lowest among the 5 operations to encircle and annihilate the divine beasts, but the gains were the highest. With this nomological fragment, I can smoothly break through to the 3-vein level, Tao Lord Qing Shui said with a smile. Xing Hui nodded. He also planned to refine the Qilin progenitor's great Tao nomological fragment when he returned so that he could advance to the level of 3 great Taos as soon as possible. Sword God Xing Hui, in fact, I understand that it's all thanks to you this time. If you didn't ask me to go with you and protect me, I definitely wouldn't have been able to collect enough nomological power to condense a nomological fragment. If I couldn't condense a nomological fragment, I wouldn't have been able to preserve it. I could only absorb it quickly to increase my cultivation progress. Otherwise, the nomological power would have dissipated after a long time and would have been reclaimed by the Qilin progenitor. Thank you for your help. After Tao Lord Qing Shui finished speaking, he bowed to Xing Hui rather cautiously. There's no need for that. The 2 of us went together to kill the divine beast progenitor. We should support each other. Xing Hui said, no matter what, I'll remember this favor. From now on, if Sword God Xing Hui needs any help, I'll definitely do my best to help. Tao Lord Qing Shui said. In fact, his promise was partly to express his gratitude, and partly to thank Xing Hui for the ability he had displayed. Although Xing Hui himself did not comprehend many types of Dharma, since he had mastered the secret method of unleashing the full power of a divine weapon of fate, he could not be regarded with ordinary eyes. In addition, his combat strength seemed to be not as simple as comprehending 2 great ways of Dharma. With these 2 Dharma overlapped, he already possessed a combat strength that was not inferior to a supreme master in some aspects. Even though Lord of Water Tao was already a great medium who stood at the top of the world, it was always right to take the initiative to curry favor with a supreme master who was at the peak of the great medium stage. I remember what Tao Lord Qing Shui said. Xing Hui smiled and accepted Lord of Tao Qing Shui's kindness. Finally, he glanced around at the territory of the Master of Chaos and said, I plan to go back and find a place to cultivate in seclusion. I want to fuse the great way of the divine beast Qilin into my own great way as soon as possible. Sword God Xing Hui, you're not going back to the Great Development Gate? I'm not going back. If I go back, I'm afraid there will be some trouble. Tao Monarch Qing Shui pondered for a moment and immediately understood what trouble Qing Su was talking about. The Grand Development Gate's master and several elders would definitely be very curious about the secret technique that allowed him to unleash the full power of a divine creation artifact. At that time, if they were to ask, Qing Su would have to answer. Thinking of this, Lord of Water, Tao, Lord nodded slightly and said, It's fine if you don't go back for the time being. I believe the Gate Master and several elders will understand your actions based on your attitude. However, If the Gate Master and several elders really want to know the reason why you can unleash the full power of a divine weapon of fate, I'm afraid hiding like this is not the way to go. I understand. Xinghui nodded and said, I'm just not going to the Great Development Gate for the time being. Once I've finished refining the Dharma fragment, I'll go to the Great Development Gate again. That's good. Xinghui considered that he had 4 Dharma fragments on him and that he only needed one, so he immediately asked, do you know where I can exchange Dharma fragments? I want to exchange the extra Dharma fragments on me for other types that are useful to me. Of course there is, but our Great Development Gate has just carried out a large-scale encirclement operation. Moreover, the Gate Master and several elders have at least 20 to 30 Dharma fragments. In addition to the others, the total number of Dharma fragments is estimated to be around 50 to 60 Dharma fragments. At this time, if you exchange them for other Dharma fragments, it's not very cost-effective. In a one-to-one situation, you'll probably have to make up for the difference in price. It's better to wait until the wind blows over. Xinghui shook his head without hesitation. The period of time that Lord of Water Dao Lord mentioned was definitely calculated in tens of thousands of years. He didn't want to wait for tens of thousands of years in vain. It's fine even if you make up for the difference in price. Help me ask around. If someone really wants to exchange Dharma fragments with me, I can at most compensate them with items worth 1 billion merit points. 1 billion merit points. Lord of Water, Dao, Lord's eyes widened slightly. That's the total amount of merit points that could be obtained from killing a superior deity. It's equivalent to 1/10 of a divine weapon of creation. You're actually willing to make up for such a high price difference? I'm talking about the highest number. If you can make up for it by a few million or tens of millions, I'll naturally be more than happy. This shows how eloquent you are, Lord of Water Dao Lord. Xinghui said with a smile. Upon hearing this, Lord of Water Dao Lord's expression changed slightly. She immediately became serious. I understand. I'll look for an exchange channel now. Thank you. Xinghui paused slightly. I don't need the Great Tao of the Golden Crow and the Torch Dragon. Previously, Xinghui had shown Lord of Water Dao the Kuan Peng and the Divine Beast of Chaos's Great Tao. Now that he said that he didn't need the Great Tao of the Golden Crow and the Torch Dragon, it undoubtedly proved that he had lied. However, Lord of Water Dao Lord didn't seem to care about this. She nodded and said, I understand. Wait for my good news. Thank you. I should be the one thanking you. Lord of Water Dao Lord said with a smile. She knew a lot of Xinghui's obscure secrets and had an innate advantage over him. If she grasped this opportunity and handled Xinghui's matter beautifully, their friendship would definitely be impregnable in the future. And to be able to obtain the friendship of someone who could barely be regarded as a supreme expert, even if she had to pay for it, Lord of Water Dao Lord would not hesitate. Swoosh! Flowing light overflowed. Xinghui's figure appeared in the teleportation formation of the True Sun Great World. After arriving at the True Sun Great World, Xinghui considered that the Great Development Sect's master and several elders might send people over. After hesitating for a while, he decided not to go to the Divine Wilderness Great World. Instead, he asked for a relatively quiet palace from true martial supremacy and went into seclusion to refine the Divine Beast Shilant's nomological fragments. Compared to others, even if they had supreme treasures like the nomological fragments, it would take at least tens of thousands of years to completely comprehend, master, and refine a nomological fragment into their own nomological fragments. Even the Great Development Sect's master, who had the highest cultivation base, took more than 29,000 years to refine the 8th Great Tao into one. As for others, their efficiency was naturally slower. Of course, this might be related to the fact that the Great Development Sect's master had refined too many nomological fragments. However, even an ordinary person would take tens of thousands of years to refine the 2nd and 3rd Great Tao nomological fragments. However, Xinghui was different from ordinary Great Divine Ability users. His great Tao plate technique had already perfectly simulated the refining process of the 12 divine beasts' nomological fragments. In particular, the existence of the virtual immortal Tao civilization made the refining of the great Tao nomological fragments extremely easy. From the time he announced his seclusion to completely refining the nomological fragments into the great Tao, the entire process took less than 40 years. Fortunately, 40 years was enough for Tao Lord Clearwater to contact buyers who were willing to exchange nomological fragments for him. After 30 years of traveling and trading, Xinghui quickly exchanged nomological fragments of the Kuan Peng, Yujia, and the giant pincer. Other than the 3 divine beast Qilins nomological fragments, he only paid a total of less than 100 million merit points in materials. After obtaining the 3 nomological fragments, Xinghui did not stop and continued his seclusion. After 60 years of seclusion, he completed the refinement of the divine beast Kuan Peng's nomological fragment. After 120 years, he completed the refinement of the divine beast Yujia's nomological fragment. After another 200 years, the corresponding nomological fragment of the divine beast giant pincer was also refined into his body. In just over 400 years, the nomological fragments in his body had increased from the previous 2 to 6, reaching half of the 12 divine beasts' nomological fragments. It's too fast. If it were other great divines, it would take at least 40 to 50,000 years to refine 4 nomological fragments in one go. Moreover, there is a probability of failure during the refinement process, and this probability increases as time goes by. Take the Great Development Sect Master, for example. Although he obtained 4 or 5 nomological fragments, he would never dare to sell them because he did not know how many times he would need to complete the refinement of the 9th Great Path nomological fragment. It could be once or twice, or even 4 or 5 times and still end in failure. But I'm different. Xinghui could not help but rejoice that he had spent a lot of effort to steal the 49 Great Path nomological fragments from the glorious Sun divinity. I used the 49 Great Path nomological fragments and the Great Path of Unification to simulate the immortal Tao civilization world. The immortal Tao civilization world itself was created by the origin point plate. Now that I'm refining the nomological fragments, it's like the process of recreating the origin point plate. Every step can be said to be natural. Naturally, I won't encounter the same situation as the Great Development Holy Sage. Not only would the refinement be difficult, but there would also be a failure if I'm not careful. Feeling the power of the 6 nomological fragments circulating in the simulated immortal Tao civilization world, Xinghui suddenly felt a lot more relaxed. Before he had refined the 4 nomological fragments, he could only rely on the deep scarlet sword to barely possess the battle strength of an omnipotent expert. Compared to the Great Development Holy Sage, the giant Dragon City Master, and the White Emperor, there was still a gap. However, at this moment, after refining the 6 nomological fragments into the Great Path of Unification, the situation had changed dramatically. Relying on the foundation laid by the 2nd layer of the Great Path plate, he estimated that he would have the battle strength of an omnipotent expert without using the Deep Scarlet Sword. If he counted the Deep Scarlet Sword, which was equivalent to an exclusive divine tool of creation, judging from the battle strength displayed by the 6 omnipotent experts when they besieged the Qilin ancestor, he was confident that he could defeat the strongest person in the Great Development Sect, the 8-vein Great Development Holy Sage. Chapter 919. It's a pity that I don't have more law fragments. Otherwise, with the immortal Tao civilization I've created using the Unity Tao and the 49 Grand Taos, it wouldn't be a problem for me to combine the 12 laws into one and trace them back to the origin disk. I've already laid the foundation, so all I have to do now is wait for more laws to fill it up. Xinghui felt a trace of regret, but he had to end his seclusion. Sword God Xinghui. When Xing Su left the cultivation room, a world with a thought expert immediately came over to receive him and bowed politely. Tsing Hui replied, and was about to say something when he glanced in the direction of the imperial palace. Is there a guest? Yes, a great master from the war zone. He's been here for 30 years, but he didn't dare disturb you because he learned that you were in seclusion, sword god Tsing Hui. The expert stole a glance at Tsing Hui as he spoke. It was evident how extraordinary Qing Su's identity was to be able to make a great ability practitioner like him act so respectfully. When he thought up to there, this expert's reverence towards Qing Su could not help but grow even more. I didn't think someone would come so soon. Tsing Hui hadn't been willing to go to the Grand Development sect before because he was worried that it would cause unnecessary trouble if the two sides didn't come to an agreement. But now that he'd refined all of the law fragments, his cultivation had skyrocketed to the 9-vein level. Even if the powerhouses of the Grand Development sect had thoughts they shouldn't have, he had enough power to face them. Then let's go see that guest. After he finished speaking, he did not say anything more to this cultivator who could create worlds with a single thought. His body did not move, and the laws retreated. The laws of space around him seemed to have turned into his subjects, operating on their own. They moved through the void and sent him to the courtyard where the great medium was. The great divine ability expert sensed the changes in the laws of space. Soon, the great divine ability expert walked out of an elegant courtyard. Along with him was Supreme True Marshal, who was carefully accompanying him. Sword god Tsing Hui. Seeing Tsing Hui, this great expert hurriedly stepped forward to greet him. I'm Ning Buku from the 802 War Zone. Greetings, Sword god Tsing Hui. So, it's the unyielding divine monarch. There were only a few thousand powerful beings in the territory of the Master of Chaos, and Tsing Hui naturally had an impression of them. The title Divine Monarch is just a joke to outsiders. In front of Sword God Tsing Hui, you don't deserve to be called Divine Monarch. Tsing Hui smiled and did not argue over such a trivial matter. He said directly, I wonder what unyielding Divine Monarch is here for. I'm actually here to deliver a message on behalf of someone. When the unyielding Divine Lord said that, he glanced at Supreme True Marshal. Supreme True Marshal immediately took the hint and left. He also took everyone nearby with him. After Supreme True Marshal and the others left, the unyielding Divine Lord took out a crystal-like item. At the same time, he waved his hand and circulated the power of laws, sealing the entire courtyard. Even he himself retreated outside the restriction. The crystal was revealed, and the flowing light dissipated. Soon, a figure condensed from the flowing light. Seeing this figure, Tsing Hui was slightly stunned. Giant Dragon City's master. The figure condensed from the flowing light was one of the war zone's chief commanders, the Giant Dragon City's master. At the same time, he was also one of the 5 great elders of the Great Development sect. He was a powerhouse who had cultivated to the 7-vein level. Of course, he now had some fragments of laws on him. However, due to the short period of time, it was unknown whether he had broken through to the 8-vein level with the help of these fragments. Sword God Tsing Hui. The Giant Dragon City's master greeted Tsing Hui. He did not exchange too many pleasantries and went straight to the point. Due to some delays, I was unable to visit Sword God Tsing Hui directly. I hope Sword God Tsing Hui can forgive me. I came to find Sword God Tsing Hui this time because I have a good deal to discuss with you. I hope Sword God Tsing Hui can consider it. A deal. Tsing Hui immediately guessed what the Giant Dragon City's master wanted. Is the deal you're talking about related to me being able to use the power of the exclusive divine weapon of creation? If that's the case, I can only say sorry. Sword God Tsing Hui, don't be in a hurry to refuse. Let me tell you what the bargaining chip is. The Giant Dragon City's master said indifferently. There was a hint of confidence in his tone. Sword God Tsing Hui, you should know about the world we live in now, right? Compared to the civilization of this world, all of us can actually be called outsiders. When Tsing Hui heard the Giant Dragon City's master say this, he could not directly refuse and only nodded. Strictly speaking, all of us from the Grand Development Gate are creatures of the Primal Chaos universe derived from the Lord of Primal Chaos. More than 100,000 years ago, His Majesty the Lord of Primal Chaos launched an attack on this world. We were ordered to step into the battlefield and invade this world. Furthermore, we obtained enormous benefits from this world. In the end, we left the Primal Chaos universe derived from the Lord of Primal Chaos and entered this world to recuperate. Furthermore, we obeyed His Majesty the Lord of Primal Chaos command and changed our original cultivation system to the 12 Divine Beast cultivation system. When Tsing-Hui heard the giant dragon city's master reveal his origin, although he was a little surprised, it was still reasonable. Although the infinite library of the vast world did not have much information about the chaotic universe derived from the Master of Chaos, it was a fact that more than 99% of the experts in the chaotic realm originated from the chaotic universe derived from the Master of Chaos. In other words, except for Tsing-Hui, Lord of Water Dao, and a few other great divines, the rest of the great divines should not be considered true practitioners of the 12 Divine Beast cultivation system. His Majesty, the great Master of Chaos, bestowed upon us the cultivation system of the 12 Divine Beasts, allowing us to possess immense power. Furthermore, it allowed us to reach the pinnacle of cultivation in just a few 100,000 years. But in reality, it was all a scam. His Majesty, the Master of Primal Chaos' true goal was to cultivate the 12 Divine Beasts to track down a great being in this world that we invaded. After knowing this, some people chose to tacitly accept it. In any case, as long as they had power, it would be fine. However, some people chose to secretly resist. These people were the predecessors of our great development gate. The giant dragon city's master paused slightly. After learning the truth, in order to transcend, we set our sights on the 12 divine beast ancestors. At this time, I must say something that can be considered treacherous. We have an evil god to thank. It was this evil god who invaded the chaotic universe of the Master of Chaos and found the true bodies of the 12 divine beast ancestors. He killed 6 of the 12 divine beast ancestors and severely injured the remaining 6, which caused the remaining divine beast ancestors' power to plummet. An evil god. Tsing-Hui connected the information provided by the Lord of Plentiful Treasures to the blood-red statue in his hand. When the 12 divine beast ancestors were at their peak, they were much more powerful than the Qilin progenitor that we had recently encircled. In addition, if we hadn't chosen to become world protectors, we wouldn't have possessed the battle prowess of a supreme expert, and we wouldn't have been able to see any hope of transcending. It was all thanks to that evil god that we were able to kill the 6 divine beast ancestors, causing their law incarnations to shatter and scatter into the territory of the Master of Primal Chaos. In the end, we obtained them and formed the Grand Development Gate. Afterwards, we relied on our own powerful strength to encircle and annihilate the law incarnations of the divine beast ancestors that had been weakened and heavily injured. From there, we obtained even more law fragments and expanded the scale of the Grand Development Gate. Tsing-Hui nodded slightly. Then, Lord of Giant Dragon City, why are you telling me all this? Sword God Tsing-Hui, you haven't refined many types of laws, so you can't sense how difficult it is to refine them. However, as we refine more and more laws, the difficulty and failure rate of refining them will increase exponentially. Back then, when we were refining 1 to 6 types of laws, we could still rely on the foundation that we had accumulated for countless years to forcefully refine them. Therefore, to outsiders, we would be able to complete a cultivation breakthrough in almost every few thousand or 10,000 years. However, as we refined the 7th and 8th types of laws, it became extremely difficult. This was especially true for the Grand Development Holy Sage, who was refining the 9th type of law. He told us that 9 types of laws was the limit for most people. As for 10 types, it would take an endless amount of time and effort, as well as hundreds and thousands of law fragments. Hundreds and thousands of law fragments. Tsing-Hui was shocked. Hundreds and thousands of law fragments could only succeed once. If he was not mistaken, The total number of law fragments that the Chilean progenitor's body could condense from the power of law was estimated to be only 1 or 2,000. You mean, the path you chose is wrong? Wrong? It's not wrong, but this path is more difficult than we imagined. The Lord of Giant Dragon City's expression was grave. Fortunately, after the brainstorming of many of the Grand Development Gate's higher-ups, we finally found a way to reduce the difficulty of refining laws. The Great Tao laws of the 12 divine beasts were actually derived from 12 special laws in the immortal Tao civilization. In the immortal Tao civilization, there is a supreme treasure called the Grand Outline of the immortal Tao civilization. It records 3,000 great Taos. This supreme treasure is rumored to have been damaged and divided into several parts. However, if anyone can obtain this supreme treasure, even if only a part of it is damaged, the refining efficiency of the 12 laws will increase exponentially. Refining the 12 great Tao laws, or even transcending and becoming a great being of chaos, is not an extravagant hope. The Grand Outline of the Grand Outline recorded 3,000 great Taos. Tsing Hui's breath caught slightly. He could already guess what the Lord of Giant Dragon City was going to say. Sure enough, the Lord of Giant Dragon City continued. That supreme treasure is called the Fortune Divine Jade by the cultivators in the immortal Tao civilization. If you don't believe me, you can go anywhere and read the information I gave you. After that, he paused for a moment and said solemnly, "My deal with you is related to that supreme treasure." Chapter 920. The name of the Fortune Jade resounds like thunder. It is said that even the Master of Chaos, the Master of Gods, and the Master of Time are searching for the whereabouts of this fragmented supreme treasure. Do you have a part of that supreme treasure? Tsing Hui asked impatiently. However, the Giant Dragon City Master understood his attitude. Anyone who knew about the preciousness of this item would have a similar reaction. If I really had such a treasure, I wouldn't have come to you, Sword God Tsing Hui. At the same time, I wouldn't have taken such a long time to refine the 7 great Tao laws. You should know that for people at our level, it's not particularly difficult to obtain a fragment of the great Tao laws. The Giant Dragon City Master shook his head. I believe you. Tsing Hui gradually calmed down. Since you don't have the Fortune Divine Jade, what are you going to use to make a deal with me? Although I don't have the Fortune Divine Jade, I have a clue about it. If we follow this clue, there is a high possibility that we can obtain a piece of the Fortune Divine Jade. My deal with you is that you will tell me the method to unleash the full power of the Fortune Divine weapon. At that time, I will allow you to follow the clue to search for the Fortune Divine Jade with me. As for who will obtain the Fortune Divine Jade in the end, it will depend on your own luck. The Giant Dragon City Master said with a faint smile. How about it? A chance to obtain the Fortune Divine Jade, or a chance to transcend the shackles of our lives, in exchange for the secret method to unleash the full power of the Fortune Divine weapon. What do you think of this deal? Nothing. Tsing Hui shook his head. City Lord, you are a true sovereign expert. If you obtain the secret technique to fully unleash the power of the Fortune Divine artifact, your battle prowess will definitely soar to a whole new level. At that time, your battle prowess will most likely be comparable to a 9-trace divine artifact. With my battle prowess, which is barely comparable to a sovereign expert, I won't be your opponent. At that time, even if I am lucky enough to obtain the Fortune Divine Jade, it will ultimately fall into your hands and may even lead to a fatal disaster. The basis of cooperation is based on the fact that both sides are equal in strength. If there is a clear difference in strength between the two of us, this kind of cooperation is completely unnecessary. The Giant Dragon City's City Lord gave Tsing Hui a deep look and said, I can sign a contract with you. The Fortune Divine Jade depends on one's luck. Whoever obtains it first will get it. After that, you're not allowed to snatch it. In the face of a great benefit like the Fortune Jade, any contract is useless. Tsing Hui said, currently, the contract with the greatest binding effect was the one he signed with Water Taoist Clearwater. Those who violated it would not only be stripped of their Son of Chaos rank, but they would also never be able to become a Son of Chaos again. However, such a contract had no effect on top great divines like the giant Dragon City's City Lord. Even for existences like the giant Dragon City's City Lord, the Dian Holy Sage, and Emperor Bai, the enhancement from the Son of Chaos was negligible to them. At the very least, if they were to carry out any major operations, they would definitely not carry it out in the territory of the Master of Chaos. It was either the territory of the other two top existences or the chaotic void. In those places, the power of the Master of Chaos could not reach. What's more, the so-called secret method to unleash the power of the divine weapon of creation is very difficult to replicate. You have to live and eat with your natal divine sword since you were young and pour all your essence, chi, and spirit into your natal divine sword. You have to uphold the belief that you live and die with the sword. Only then will you be able to separate the sword spirit from your natal divine sword and inject it into the divine weapon of creation at a critical moment. Then, you'll be able to use the power of the sword spirit to unleash the power of the divine weapon of creation. Can you uphold this belief that you trust your natal divine sword wholeheartedly and do not hesitate to share life and death with it? When the giant Dragon City's City Lord heard Tsing Hui mention the skill to unleash the full power of the Fortune divine weapon, his face darkened slightly. However, he obviously did not believe in this method. Green Ruin Sword God, you haven't reached the level of 6 or 7 veins yet. You haven't come into contact with your limits yet, so you don't understand just how valuable treasures that can drastically reduce the difficulty of smelting are. You also don't understand just how valuable the Fortune Jade Fragment is to us who yearn for transcendence. Once you reach my level of cultivation, you'll naturally understand just how great of an impact rejecting my deal will have on your future. Speaking of this, the giant Dragon City's City Lord looked deeply at Tsing Hui and said, I will give you 10,000 years to think about it. I hope that Sword God Tsing Hui will make the right choice when the time comes. After he finished speaking, his figure dissipated, and the light within the crystal also converged. Seeing this, the unyielding Sir God, who was waiting outside the restriction, removed the restriction and stepped forward to pick up the crystal. At the same time, he said with a smile, It seems that Sword God Tsing Hui has finished his discussion with the City Lord. In that case, I shall not disturb you any further. Thank you, unyielding Sir God, for making this trip. It's my duty. The unyielding Sir God nodded politely and bid farewell to Tsing Hui. Soon after, he soared into the sky and left. After the unyielding Sir God left, Tsing Hui returned to his seat and pondered carefully. It seems that the information about the Fortune Divine Jade that the City Lord has is most likely referring to the last piece. It's a pity that the Scarlet Abyss sword cannot be duplicated. Otherwise, it would not be a problem to use the related skill to trade with the City Lord. With my current combat power that is not inferior to that of a 9-vein divine weapon, even if the City Lord is scheming against me, I will not be afraid. Tsing Hui was deep in thought with a regretful expression. As for capturing the City Lord and forcing him to give up the information, his current combat power was indeed above the City Lord's, but this did not mean that he could capture the City Lord alive. Once the City Lord escaped, the other members of the Great Development Sect, who had been eyeing the secret skill of unleashing the full power of the Fortune Divine Weapon, would definitely kill him without hesitation. At that time, facing the encirclement of 6 supreme experts and dozens or hundreds of top grade divines, not to mention that he only had the combat power of a 9-vein divine weapon. Even if he had the combat power of a 10-vein or 11-vein divine weapon, he might not be able to withstand it. It is extremely difficult for the City Lord and the Great Development Holy Sage to refine the precept fragments. There's a high probability of failure, but I don't have this problem. As long as I have enough precept fragments, I can definitely refine the 12 great Tao precepts within a few thousand years and trace back to the origin plate. From there, I will have the foundation to transform into a true chaotic life form. It's a pity that I have used up all the precept fragments in my possession. If I want to use conventional methods, it will be difficult to gather more precept fragments in a short period of time. Xinghui frowned. For a time, his path could not help but fall into a deadlock. After a while, he let out a long sigh and shook his head, expelling the idea of reaching the heavens in a single step. A meal must be eaten one bite at a time, and a road must be walked one step at a time. It seems that I can only take it slow. Now that I have the fighting strength of a nine-trace expert, I can consider helping the other people of the Great Development Gate complete the mission in exchange for precept fragments. Thinking of this, Xinghui did not waste time in the True Sun Great World. He said goodbye to the Supreme True Marshal and left the True Sun Great World, heading towards the Great Development Gate. When Xinghui arrived at the Great Development Gate after spending some time, he found that the Great Development Gate was much more deserted than before. After thinking about it for a while, he understood the reason. This time, the Great Development Gate's encirclement to kill the Chilean ancestor could be said to be a great harvest. It was unknown how many people returned from this operation with a bountiful harvest, obtaining many precept fragments. These cultivators naturally went into seclusion at the fastest speed to refine the precept fragments and increase their strength. How could they have extra time to stay in the Great Development Gate? The Great Development Gate, which originally only had a little over 160 people, suddenly had a dozen or so people enter seclusion. Naturally, it became much more deserted. After arriving at the Great Development Gate, Xinghui directly headed towards the request for missions that recorded the various requests for missions. As his gaze swept across, 3 missions that involved precept fragments quickly appeared before him. One of them was the one he had seen before, the Dark Knight God, who had helped him kill the master of God's bloodline. The reward was a precept fragment of the divine beast Yujia. This mission had been hanging for several thousand years, and no one had ever completed it. Even though Xinghui's fighting strength was not inferior to a nine-trace expert, he still did not hesitate to look away. His gaze then fell on the other 2 missions. One of them was to kill the Great Ability Realm World Protector, Emperor Qi Shao. Emperor Qi Shao was a famous peak figure among the world protectors. He had deduced a grand Tao law to the extreme and had fused it with a fortune artifact. His fighting strength was close to that of Sovereign. Even if the elders of the Great Development Gate took action, they might be able to defeat him, but it would be absolutely difficult to kill him. This mission had been hanging for over 1,000 years, and the reward was a precept fragment of the divine beast Primal Chaos. The other mission required him to head to the Time Lord's territory and destroy a level 21 civilization. The reward was a precept fragment of the divine beast Chilean, and the date of this mission was 13 years ago. Destroy a level 21 civilization. Civilizations of level 20 and above under the Time Lord's bloodline would only be able to scatter them, and it would be difficult to destroy them. As long as they have a single mainframe, they would be able to develop to the level of level 21 in an extremely short period of time, and with a little bit of consolidation, they would be able to reach the level of level 21 again. What limits the development of the Time Lord civilization is not fleets or colonial planets, but computing power. If they had unlimited computing power, a level 21 civilization would be able to go all out and form a flood of machines, and they would probably be able to fight against the divine beast ancestor. Xinghui muttered to himself for a moment before choosing the mission to kill Emperor Qi Shao. However, before accepting the mission, he still contacted the Dragon's Word Heavenly Lord, In Kong Zi, and the Buddhist Saint Realm Lord, who happened to be here, and invited them to his mountain peak. The moment they met, the Dragon's Word Heavenly Lord, In Kong Zi, and the Buddhist Saint Realm Lord came up to him enthusiastically. Sword God Xinghui, all of you have returned with a bountiful harvest in this battle against the Chilean progenitor. I heard that your final harvest is probably close to that of the elders and the sect master. This is truly incredible. I think the most incredible thing is the secret technique that Sword God Xinghui has grasped. a secret technique that can unleash the full power of a destinable artifact. This is simply incredible. What secret technique is there? Sing Hui repeated what he had said to the giant Dragon City Lord before saying, "If you think you can do this, I don't mind giving you the secret technique. If the sword exists, the person exists. If the sword dies, the person dies. This kind of destinable artifact must be nurtured from a young age. The slightest problem will lead to failure," the dragon's word Heavenly Lord sighed. "It's indeed very difficult." Inkong Z and the Brahma Saint World Lord nodded in agreement. "I've come to find all of you this time because I want to obtain more fragments. Once I've accumulated enough fragments, I'll go into seclusion for 100,000 years. Therefore, I've chosen the mission to kill Emperor Qi Shao. I hope that all of you can help me take a look and see if there are any difficulties in this mission. Also, if there are better missions, please recommend them to me." Chapter 9:21. Great Emperor Qi Shao. The illustrious Emperor Qi Shao is not a simple character. Although Emperor Qi Shao is not a true expert and is slightly inferior to our Great Development Gate's sect master and a few elders, Emperor Qi Shao is definitely not a weakling. I'm afraid that even if our sect master personally took action, he would only be able to defeat Emperor Qi Shao and may not be able to kill Emperor Qi Shao. Sword God Sing Hui. Although you possess battle prowess on par with sovereigns, and I believe your strength will increase further after you refine a law, I don't recommend you accept this mission. Sing Hui's words immediately drew objections from the other great masters. Clearly, they felt that going up against someone like Qi Shao, who stood at the peak of the cultivation world and could barely be considered a sovereign, was not the right choice. "I haven't made a final decision yet, so I'm asking for your advice," Sing Hui said. "Well," after a moment of silence, the dragon sword Heavenly Lord said, "Green Ruins, Sword God, if you're already mentally prepared to become an enemy of a quasi-sovereign like Emperor Qi Shao, then there's a mission I've learned of that you can consider." "Oh, what mission?" "The person who put up the bounty isn't a member of the Great Development Sect, but he should have a law fragment." Dragon's word didn't delve deeper in front of Inkong Z and the Brahma Saint Realm Lord. Instead, he said, "If you have time, I'll take you to meet this great master." "Of course I have time." "Then I'll contact him. If you can really help my friend, I'll owe you another favor." Sing Hui waved his hand. "If I can really get a law fragment from him, then I'll owe you a favor." Dragon's word smiled. "I've already sent him a message. Let's talk as we walk." "All right." Sing Hui nodded. The Brahma Saint Realm Lord and Inkong Z also stood up and bid Sing Hui farewell. Under Heavenly Venerate Dragon Sword's lead, Sing Hui quickly left the Great Expansion Sky and headed toward the periphery of the Master of Chaos territory near the War Zone. After traveling for a year, Heavenly Lord Dragon Sword had already received a reply from his friend. He then changed his direction and rushed for another year. The two of them had already appeared in a great world not far from the front line. Although this large world was not a real war zone, it was equivalent to a logistics zone. From time to time, fleets under the command of the Lord of Time and gods under the command of the Lord of Gods would come to attack. Therefore, many defensive war fortresses could be seen on the periphery of the entire world. Each fortress had one or two auras of supreme beings. Heavenly Venerable Dragon Word brought Sing Hui directly to the largest of the many war fortresses. This friend of mine is called Lord Gu Xuanzuan, and he walks the path of the World Protector. His current battle strength is similar to mine, and he's at the 4-vein level. He's a world lord who rules over 100 worlds, and because he coincidentally obtained a law fragment, he was targeted and his world was destroyed. His family was destroyed, and he had no choice but to stay in a war zone, not daring to return. Heavenly Venerable Dragon's Word gave a simple introduction. There was an iron law in the war zone, and that was that cultivators above the level of great magics were not allowed to kill each other. Otherwise, great magics could directly ask the Great Master of Chaos to send down an incarnation to judge. This world before them was not a frontline war zone, but it was probably a logistics department. It could barely be considered a war zone. If a battle were to occur here, it would still be punished by the Master of Chaos. Then, is the law fragment in his hand still there? If the law fragment is true, it's definitely still there. I just don't know if the law fragment is true or not. I see, Sing Hui frowned. The possibility is not high. If he really had the law fragment, he would have hired someone to deal with his opponent long ago. Why would he wait until now? Judging from your attitude toward Great Emperor Qi Shao, this Gu Xuanzuan's enemy's battle strength should not exceed 6 vein level. If he doesn't have 6 vein level, he should only be 1 or 2 vein level. At most, he shouldn't exceed 3 vein level. However, he should have a creation divine artifact with him. His battle strength should be 4 or 5 vein level. But that's not the point. The point is that Gu Xuanzuan's enemy, Great Venerable Bone Temple's enemy, has an extremely terrifying backer, the 8-armed dragon god. 8-armed dragon god. When Sing Hui heard this name, he only felt that it sounded familiar. However, a moment later, as if he had thought of something, his expression changed slightly. The 8-armed dragon god ranked 9th on the Supreme Divine list. The Supreme Divine list was a list that circulated in the Master of Chaos territory, and even among the top existences in the 3 Great Existences territories. This list was a list that countless busybodies had spontaneously spread based on the information they had obtained. It did not belong to any special organization. However, it was this kind of list that was spread by word of mouth that was even more shocking. The Supreme Divine list was named Supreme. Naturally, the top 10 most powerful and invincible existences in the territories of the 3 Supreme Beings were ranked. Half of the 10 spots belonged to the territory of the Master of Primal Chaos, so there were 5 spots. Of the 5 spots, only 2 were occupied by the Great Development Gate. They were respectively the Gate Master, the Great Development Saint Sovereign, who was ranked 4th, and the Giant Dragon City Lord, who was ranked 8th. Of the remaining 3, one was Black Supremacy Black and White, who ranked 2nd and was equivalent to the representative of the Master of Chaos Will. Another was Long River Realm Lord, who ranked 6th, and the last was the 8-armed Dragon God, who ranked 9th. On this list, Glorious Sun Divinity was also on the list, ranked 5th. As for the civilization under the Master of Time, only one was on the list, the Kalor Civilization. Ranked 1st, the Kalor Civilization's computing power was said to have reached more than 1,000 levels. That's the 8-armed Dragon God. Dragon, Sword Heavenly Venerable Nodded. Great Venerable Bone Temple is the 8-armed Dragon God's son. You didn't hear wrong. Direct bloodline. A descendant only 1 generation away. Sing Hui immediately understood the seriousness of the matter. The only direct descendant of the bloodline. If he killed such a descendant, the 8-armed dragon god would surely go crazy. The enmity between the two would most likely be irreconcilable. Dragon Sword Heavenly Venerable, you've really given me a difficult problem. Sing Hui shook his head and said, although you may make a great enemy of the 8-armed dragon god by doing this, if you can refine the divine Beast Cheelant's law fragment and refine the other law fragments one by one, and with the divine creation artifact, you will soon grow to a level not inferior to the 8-armed dragon god. Killing the son of the 8-armed dragon god is not the same as killing the 8-armed dragon god. Everyone who can cultivate to the level of great magics can maintain enough rationality. I believe that as long as you show enough cultivation, the 8-armed dragon god will naturally make the right choice and let go of his hatred for you. Dragon, Sword, Heavenly Venerable paused for a moment, then smiled and said, in fact, compared to the 8-armed dragon god, you have a great advantage, and that is that you only have the divine wilderness great world to guard. Once you take away the important figures of the divine wilderness great world, it's almost equivalent to having an easy life. On the other hand, the 8-armed dragon god's family has already become extremely large. As long as you can show strength and potential that makes him afraid, he won't dare to fall out with you. Barefooted people aren't afraid of wearing shoes. Sing Hui smiled. He, who only had the divine wilderness great world, could indeed be called barefooted compared to any great magics. Moreover, killing a great magix who only had 2 or 3 vain great magics would not only obtain a law fragment, but also a divine creation artifact, which would make the evolution of the Scarlet Abyss sword more perfect. In fact, Tsing Hui was already somewhat tempted. However, the premise was that Venerable Gu Xian had a law fragment in his hands. How did Venerable Gu Xian and Supreme Venerable Gu Sha become enemies? Tsing Hui asked curiously as they stepped into the largest battle fortress in the war zone. The law fragment is one of the reasons. It sounds a bit melodramatic, but in fact, it's all because of a woman. Although Grand Venerable Bon Ka's cultivation is high, he's lustful. He wants to take any woman he sees into his harem. Currently, there are more than 300,000 beauties in his harem, and each of them can be said to be devastatingly beautiful. When he fought over the law fragment with Grand Venerable Gu Xian, he had already formed a grudge. Later, he even forced himself on one of Grand Venerable Gu Xian's female disciples, which led to a conflict. At that time, Grand Venerable Gu Xian didn't know Grand Venerable Bon Ka's identity, so he taught Grand Venerable Bon Ka a lesson and almost killed him. Even though Grand Venerable Gu Xian wanted to settle the matter peacefully, Grand Venerable Bon Ka had never suffered such humiliation since young. Dragon Sword Heavenly Venerable gave a brief introduction. Tsing Hui nodded. The next important thing was to see if Venerable Gu Xian had a law fragment. As the two chatted, they soon arrived at the largest battle fortress. Venerable Gu Xian was already waiting outside the battle fortress. When he saw Dragon Sword Heavenly Venerable, he immediately stepped forward and gave him a warm hug. Dragon Sword, long time no see. It's been a while. Dragon Sword Heavenly Venerable stole a glance at Tsing Hui awkwardly. When he saw that Tsing Hui's expression was normal, he hurriedly introduced him to Venerable Gu Xian. This is Sword God Tsing Hui, who I told you about. He has the battle strength of an ultimate expert. Greetings, Sword God Tsing Hui. Whether this deal can be reached or not, I, Venerable Gu Xian, am willing to become an ally of Sword God Tsing Hui to thank you for your enthusiasm. Venerable Gu Xian said. Tsing Hui nodded slightly. Well, now, I only want to know one question. Sword God Tsing Hui, why don't you come with me? Venerable Gu Xian naturally knew what Tsing Hui wanted to ask. After saying that, he led Tsing Hui directly into the fortress. Although this battle fortress was called a fortress, its core was actually a world. It was a world formed by the fall of an ultimate expert. This world had been refined for tens of millions of years. In the end, it had formed a space of less than 30,000 miles. However, the suppression of the order in this space was extremely strong. Perhaps even an expert who had cultivated the Origin Sacred Body would find it difficult to tear apart the order of the world and escape from this world. As for the remaining insightful Void Realm and Void-Shattering Realm cultivators, they could not even fly in this world. Venerable Gu Xian led the two of them into the depths of the world. They came directly to a palace built on a mountain peak at the center. As layers of formations and restrictions were activated one by one, a mysterious aura spread out from inside. Sword God Tsing Hui, please have a look. Gu Xuanzun gestured with his hand, revealing the treasure that was surrounded by layers upon layers of restrictions and formations. It was the fragment of the order. However, what surprised Tsing Hui was that there was not only one fragment of the order in front of him, but there were two. However, one of the fragments of the order did not belong to the 12 divine beasts. Even with his knowledge, he could not distinguish it. Chapter 922. The Divine Beast Yuan Tian's Law Fragment. Tsing Hui's gaze paused on one of the law fragments for a moment before it landed on the other one. This law fragment isn't simple. Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword, who had also come over, looked at the law fragment with a solemn expression. Although the power of the law fragment that was placed together with the divine beast Yuan Tian's law fragment was not obvious, and the flowing light on it was slightly dimmer, the mysteries it faintly revealed far surpassed the divine beast Yuan Tian's law fragment. If a comparison had to be made, it was like the difference between a complete steam engine and a broken oil engine. Although the latter was not as useful as a powerhouse, its technical content was far from what the former could compare to. Venerable Gu Xuanzuan, where did you obtain this law fragment? I obtained it together with the divine beast Yuan Tian's law fragment. Venerable Gu Xuanzuan's gaze fell on Tsing Hui as he spoke. I don't know what kind of divine beast this is, or if it's a law fragment of a special existence. But if Sword God Tsing Hui can really kill Supreme Venerable Gu Sha for me and avenge me, I'm willing to give this law fragment to you. Deal. Tsing Hui agreed without hesitation. He just happened to need the law fragment of the divine beast Yuan Tian. As for killing Supreme Venerable Gu Sha and possibly attracting the hostility of the eight-armed dragon god, let alone the fact that the eight-armed dragon god was even weaker than the Grand Yin Holy Exalt. Even if he had reached the level of the Grand Yin Holy Exalt, it would still be a piece of cake for Qing Su to defeat him. If he could refine the fragment of laws from the divine beast Tong Tian and truly possess the 7 laws of the divine beasts, he might even have a certain chance of directly killing the eight-armed dragon god if he came looking for him. Well, what did you say? Venerable Gu Xuanzuan was slightly taken aback when he heard Tsing Hui agree without hesitation. For a moment, he was in disbelief. I said it's a deal. Tsing Hui smiled faintly. You should have collected a lot of information about Supreme Venerable Gu Sha, right? I need to know where he is right now. If everything goes well, it won't be long before you hear about Grand Monarch Gu Sha's death. Yes. I've planted quite a few spies in Heavenly Face Great World. Some of them are even close to Grand Monarch Gu Ka. As long as I activate these spies, I'll be able to quickly grasp Grand Monarch Gu Ka's whereabouts. Very well. Then I'll head to the Heavenly Yin Great World first and wait for your news. Venerable Gu Xuan had lost his composure for a moment due to his excessive excitement, but he calmed down very soon. After a moment of hesitation, he still turned to the Dragon Sword Heavenly Venerable and said, Dragon Sword, have you told the Green Ruins Sword God about the existence behind the Bone Temple Heavenly Venerable? I don't want to bring unnecessary trouble to God of Swords Tsing Hui. Sovereign Gu Xuanzuan, aren't you underestimating me too much? Aren't you underestimating the Green Ruins Sword God too much? You're my friend, but the Green Ruins Sword God is also my benefactor. If it weren't for the Green Ruins Sword God's assistance, how would I have been able to kill the colossal beast god and take revenge? Don't worry. I've already told Sword God Tsing Hui about the existence of the eight-armed dragon god. Sword God Tsing Hui is different from us. Dragon Sword Heaven hesitated for a moment, not knowing how to explain Tsing Hui's uniqueness. After a long while, he said, In fact, the final development of the matter may be different from what we imagined. The eight-armed dragon god is an insurmountable mountain in front of us, but it may not be the same for Sword God Tsing Hui. With the secret method Sword God Tsing Hui has mastered and the law fragments he has collected during this period, after he goes into closed-door cultivation for tens of thousands of years and completely refines these law fragments, I believe the eight-armed dragon god may not have the courage to find trouble with Sword God Tsing Hui. Gu Xuanzuan breathed a sigh of relief when he heard this. Tsing Hui nodded inwardly when he saw this. He could feel that Gu Xuanzuan's words and actions were from the bottom of his heart. With such thoughts, it was not in vain to avenge Gu Xuanzuan. There's no time to lose. I'll go directly to Heavenly Yin Great World. Farewell, Sword God Tsing Hui. Gu Xuanzuan and Dragon Sword Heaven hurriedly bowed to see him off. Tsing Hui crossed the void and hurried to Heavenly Yin Great World. Heavenly Yin Great World was different from closed worlds like True Sun Great World and Divine Wilderness Great World. It was connected by a teleportation formation, so it was extremely fast. In less than 3 years, he had already appeared in the final battle in Heavenly Yin Great World. Before he came to Heavenly Yin Great World, Tsing Hui had already received news that his target, Supreme Sovereign Gu Sha, was in Heavenly Yin Great World. Although Heavenly Yin Great World was not a closed world, it was under the protection of Supreme Sovereign Gu Sha's many great worlds. Anyone who wanted to go to Heavenly Yin Great World had to go through a series of checks. However, Qing Su had come to kill the Bone Temple Great Exalted in the first place, so he was not afraid of offending the Bone Temple Great Exalted at all. Coupled with the fact that he was a great ability cultivator himself, he had directly unleashed his presence before the cultivators who wanted to check his identity could even approach him. It made the Conqueror and World Creation cultivators who guarded the teleportation formations afraid to move. After passing through several teleportation formations, they finally arrived at the final transit point outside the Heavenly Yin Great World. At this transit point's teleportation formation, an old man who had cultivated the Origin Sacred Body was already waiting there with a group of supreme experts. When he saw Tsing Hui, he immediately stepped forward and bowed. "Great Map, Great World's Realm Lord, Air Lai, greets Sword God Tsing Hui. Our Great Map, Great World is honored by Sword God Tsing Hui's visit. Get out of the way of the teleportation formation." Qing Su said coldly. "A friend of mine has gone missing. She once passed by the Heavenly Face Great World. Considering the great venerable Bone Temple's reputation in your world, I have no choice but to head to the Heavenly Face Great World and investigate it myself." "Your Excellency's friend? Don't worry. If your friend is really gone missing in our Heavenly Yin Great World, we will do our best to cooperate with your investigation. I will inform Supreme Sovereign and have him come." "Inform him? Do you want him to be prepared to hide my friend? Get out of the way of the teleportation formation, or die." Tsing Hui did not give Air Lai any time to talk nonsense. He did not want to waste too much time and allow Supreme Sovereign Gu Sha to notice, which would create unnecessary variables. When the World Lord Eli saw Qing Su's ferocious approach, he signaled for someone to inform Great Venerable Bone Temple immediately and even reported to the eight-armed dragon god secretly. He tried his best to stall for time. "Sir, do you think there's some sort of misunderstanding here?" Bang! Before Realm Lord Air Lai could finish speaking, Tsing Hui directly used the power of the great Tao of the divine beast Kunpeng to completely seal the space around him. Then he appeared on the teleportation formation and directly activated it. As the space fluctuations dissipated, he quickly disappeared from the teleportation formation. As Tsing Hui left, the power of the great Tao of the divine beast Kunpeng naturally weakened. Realm Lord Air Lai struggled with all his strength and finally broke free from Tsing Hui's seal. He hurriedly shouted, "Quick, quick, quickly send the news to Supreme Sovereign and have him hide in the depths of the palace. At the same time, immediately invite the eight-armed dragon god over." When Sword God Tsing Hui appeared, I investigated other information. This Sword God Tsing Hui is said to have a close relationship with Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword. Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword is a good friend of Heavenly Venerable Gu Xuanzuan. Heavenly Venerable Tsing Hui may have been entrusted by Heavenly Venerable Gu Xuanzuan to assassinate Supreme Sovereign. Immediately, his voice resounded, causing the entire Great Map, Great World to shake. However, Tsing Hui, who had already stepped into the teleportation formation, was unaware of this. As the spatial fluctuations dissipated, Tsing Hui's figure gradually appeared from the teleportation formation of the Heavenly Yin Great World. Sword God Tsing Hui. As soon as he appeared outside the teleportation formation, a woman who looked to be in her 30s and was full of a mature aura immediately greeted Tsing Hui respectfully. Supreme Sovereign has already learned of the arrival of Sword God Tsing Hui. He specially ordered us to welcome you here and properly entertain you. Sword God Tsing Hui. Tsing Hui glanced at the woman. Then his gaze quickly fell on the others. These people's cultivation levels were basically around the sovereign level. There were a lot of them, about 3,000 of them. Under the leadership of the three sovereigns, the 3,000 sovereigns faintly merged with the formation around the teleportation formation and surrounded Tsinghui. Obviously, these people in the heavenly yin great world had received some news. The formation formed by the 3,000 sovereigns and the three sovereigns naturally could not do anything to Tsinghui. However, what made Tsinghui somewhat speechless was that the 3,000 sovereigns and the three sovereigns in front of him were all women without exception. Moreover, as he extended his soul sense, he discovered that it was not just the 3,000-odd people before him. Over 99% of the cultivators in the entire heavenly yin great world were female, and there were many species as well. Not only were there humans, but there were also various foreign races, which was an eye-opener for Ching Su. After sweeping a glance, Tsing Hui's gaze quickly fell on the center of the heavenly yin great world. Even though Supreme Sovereign Gusha was already hiding in the center of his palace and had activated many formations, there were no formation masters in the lineage of the Master of Chaos. Those inferior formations could not hide the full aura of a powerful expert at all. Tsing Hui had already locked on his Supreme Sovereign Gusha's position with one glance. Without wasting any time, Tsing Hui strode forward and the surrounding space laws automatically retreated. Seeing this, the female sovereign leading the group narrowed her eyes slightly and hurriedly shouted, "Sword God Tsing Hui, please go with us and rest for a while. Supreme Sovereign will personally receive Sword God in a moment. Sword God, please don't make things difficult for your subordinates." As she spoke, the formation formed by her and the 3,000 sovereigns had already been fully activated. A powerful sealing force spread continuously with the help of the formation's power, seemingly wanting to completely seal Tsing Hui in this area. "You want to stop me with this level of power?" Seeing that Supreme Sovereign Gusha seemed to have understood his purpose, Tsing Hui did not waste any more time. The great Tao laws that belonged to the divine beast Kun Peng vibrated continuously all over his body. An illusory figure of the divine beast Kun Peng seemed to appear in the void. With a roar, it disrupted the space laws within a radius of hundreds of millions of kilometers. Under the impact of this disrupted space laws, at least 1/3 of the 3,000 sovereigns who tried to seal Tsing Hui felt their great Tao vibrate at the same time. They spat out blood on the spot and suffered a backlash from the great Tao laws. The remaining 2,000 sovereigns turned pale. After tearing apart this simple seal, Tsing Hui strode out and appeared directly in Supreme Sovereign Gusha's palace. He instantly raised the Scarlet Abyss sword and slashed down at the palace that was protected by layers of formations. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.